Chapter 1182. It's probably dead. Gustav heaved a sigh of disappointment after the discovery and was about leaving when he thought of something. When did I become so nice that I'm willing to stay out of trouble instead of getting the job done? He wondered as he turned to stare at the 8 participants up ahead who were battling. He was well aware that they were fighting because of the eggs, what was left of them from the caves in this area, which meant he could get it from them, but for some reason he had been wanting to stay out of trouble. Am changing? Gustav was self-aware. However, he knew that this wasn't the time for any self-reflection. God Eyes has been activated. He activated God Eyes once more and glanced in the direction of the battle. There were 7 participants in total who were battling each other. 2 were the same species, while the remaining 5 were different species. Gustav recognized every single one of them and immediately identified the different planets they represented. The 2 who were teammates weren't getting the upper hand despite there being 2 of them. One of them also happened to be holding onto an egg as they tried dealing with the attacks. It was no surprise that we other 5 were doing attacking in unison to get the egg from the 2 teammates, so in the meantime they weren't enemies to each other. The battle wouldn't end if they managed to get the egg from the 2. Gustav squatted in place and extended his index and thumb fingers a few centimeters away from his face. He proceeded to join the tips of the right and left index and thumb fingers together before staring through the space formed like it was a scope. Shutting his right eye, Gustav focused his sight on the egg, which was in the possession of the participant that had just successfully escaped another attack. Despite the battle happening more than 4,000 feet away, Gustav's sight was on the egg like it was just inches away from his eyes. "SJ, get it," Gustav commanded. Zing, the sacred jewel appeared in the next instant, and along with it was the appearance of a blue egg. After the blue egg and the sacred jewel appeared, the sacred jewel emitted a bright glow, causing the egg to float in mid-air. Ting, the egg flashed with a blue light, and the color changed in the next instant to a violet-colored egg. The participant who was holding on to a violet-colored egg while trying to escape the onslaught of the other attackers hadn't noticed the change in color of the egg in their grasp. Gustav grabbed the violet-colored egg right in front of him and smirked, for eggs acquired. Just as Gustav was about to keep the violet-colored egg away, the participants up ahead took notice of the color change. "Hold on. It's blue." 2 of them who were initially about to attack earlier paused while pointing this out. "What?" The participant who was holding onto the egg raised it with a shocked look as the middle of his head turned red. "Who did this?" Fire blazed from the middle of his head as he yelled. Both himself and his teammates stared at the 5 before them with looks of anguish. "It couldn't have been us. We were right here," one of the 5 voiced out. Their faces calmed a bit as they realized that the participant was right, but this left them with more confusion. "I saw a flash of light in that direction, and when I stared at the egg I noticed it had changed color." "I saw the flash of light too, from the top of that ice rock," 2 out of the 5 participants pointed out, and everyone turned to stare in Gustav's direction. "There's someone there. He has the egg." A participant among them who had the ability to allos view things from a long distance noticed the egg before Gustav kept it in his storage button. "Get him!" They yelled out as they leapt into the air and sped in Gustav's direction. Zing, at this point Gustav had already kept the egg in his storage button when he noticed the participants headed for him. "They caught on quite quickly," he muttered while standing to his feet. Attacks were already formulating and being thrown forward, but before any of them could close in on Gustav. "Bye." He waved at the oncoming participants as he activated an ability. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Right before their very eyes, Gustav's body dematerialized and turned into a lightning streak. Threra, the blue streak phased past them with intense speed, disappearing into the distance in the blink of an eye. Boom, boom, boom. Flames, energy strikes, and all sorts of attacks landed atop the rock after Gustav disappeared, causing it to come crashing down. Frost scattered in every direction after the bombardment of attacks, but Gustav was already long gone. "Let's chase him," one of them suggested with a look of dissatisfaction. "No point. Whatever running technique he used just now is just as fast as teleportation. We won't be able to catch him," another participant voiced. "I saw who it was the captain of Earth, Gustav Crimson," one of them revealed. "Him? What a sneaky coward," another one yelled. "I'll make sure to pay him back for this." Let's just look for another one. Gustav soon arrived in another location that was no less than 200,000 feet away from the initial. He landed within an area that just so happened to have nothing but plain icelands for a long stretch. This is still a part of that territory. I need to move further away. Gustav happened to recall something at this moment. The third daily task was to defeat a Frostriken. Gustav stared at the sky. The skies looked gloomy as usual, so one couldn't tell the time, neither could they tell if it was day or night. Despite its dimness, it still emitted a little bit of light that never increased or decreased. The day is ending already. Although one couldn't associate day and night with the way time operated within the fourth disk, Gustav was able to tell that the third day was nearly over. This also meant he would fail his daily task if he didn't battle with a Frostriken and win. So now I gotta head back, Gustav muttered as he noticed he couldn't find any icy rock or cave in the vicinity. He couldn't start looking for another icy rock and cave since he didn't know the terrain or have a map with him. This was why he decided to head back to the one he had already been to. Gustav proceeded to tap on his left wrist. Truian, the dimensional bracelet strapped to his wrist, appeared, displaying checkpoint areas. Gustav chose one. He recently made a checkpoint, and a computerized voice could be heard next. 3, 2, 1. Zing! A flash of blue light encapsulated Gustav's figure, and he disappeared in the next moment. He reappeared before a massive flaming white tree in the next instant. A couple of feet away was the entrance to a familiar-looking icy cave. This was the same cave Gustav had first infiltrated to get his first 3 eggs. Fortunately for him, he planted a checkpoint here before he went into the cave. He also planted a checkpoint before the second flaming tree he came across for reasons known to him. He had also decided he would plant another checkpoint if he was to find a flaming tree like this one in another location. Gustav wasted no time before walking into the cave. Thwoosh, with his speed, he soon arrived in front of the same chamber where the 2 participants he first met were battling with the creature that suddenly phased out of the cave ground. That creature happened to be a Frostriken. Gustav wouldn't have known this if the system didn't announce its identity the moment it phased out of the ground 3 days back. Gustav could see that the place still looked roughened up with chunks of ice, forming a small hill at a corner and a massive hole in one of the walls. Some eggs were still embedded in the northern walls, but these eggs were colors Gustav already possessed, so he didn't need them. However, he had to provoke the creature to show up, so whoosh, Gustav sped forward and arrived before one of the eggs. He grabbed hold of it and pulled it out of its hole, expecting the creature to appear. The place was as silent as a graveyard even after more than 30 seconds had gone by. Gustav had a look of confusion as he jumped up a little and pulled another egg out of the wall. However, even after many seconds had gone by, there was no form of disturbance, neither did he sense any presence. It's probably dead, or maybe it left, the system said internally. Thanks, Captain Obvious. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Com. Chapter 1183. Let's go after his teammates. It's probably dead, or maybe it left, the system said internally. Thanks, Captain Obvious. You're welcome, Dumbo, the system replied. Gustav ignored the system and looked around the place properly. There was more destruction in view compared to the time he was here. This was to be expected since Gustav fled, leaving the other 2 participants to face the fury of the Frostriken. Did they manage to slay it? Gustav felt this was unlikely since one of them got seriously injured, and there was no corpse nearby. He decided not to overthink it and crouched for a moment before leaping upwards. Soon, his figure blasted through the ceiling of the frost cave and arrived above the surface in the next moment. I need to find another one, Gustav muttered while looking around. There were more caves in the vicinity, so all Gustav did was spread his senses outwards to infiltrate the underground areas of the caves, so he could inspect if there were any more signs of battles within Tiger ones around. Gustav sped forward in the next instant, crossing a long terrain of icy mountains and leaping across thousands of feet. In a couple of moments, he arrived before another cave and quickly went in. Few seconds later, a repeat of what happened in the other cave played out again. Gustav was back on the surface as he couldn't find a Frostriken. He searched more for them, and after an hour of searching all across, notifications popped up in his line of sight. Daily Task 3 incomplete. 30 minutes left. The notification was a reminder of how much time he had left before he would be deemed by the system to have failed the daily task. Gustav knew there was no time to waste as he leapt into the air, and bat-like wings sprouted out of his back. Flyyi, he sped across the air with immense speed as he activated hover as well, merging them. Gustav perception caught wind of another cave a couple of minutes later, and he quickly swooped down with intensity. Bang, 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 bang. The sounds of battle coming from below was ignored by Gustav as he figured dove down and blasted through the surface of the ground. Boom. The instant Gustav blasted through, he landed on the massive head of a whitish creature resembling a snake. The force pushed the creature down, causing it to slam its jaw into the ground. Fuhum, chunks of ice blasted across the vicinity along with winds carrying a lot of fog. Dash. The other alien life forms within the cave were confounded as they witnessed this. The icy ground above had shattered, displaying the interior of the cave where the battle was ongoing before Gustav's entry. It just so happened that the other 4 participants in the vicinity had been fighting this creature together. Why? The frost Riken roared as it lifted its neck forcefully, flinging Gustav off its head. Gustav did a flip as his body traveled backwards and landed on the icy wall at the end of the cave, before pushing himself forward with his legs. Bang! The wall instantly came, crumbling down from the force as Gustav's body propelled forward at an insane speed while he activated another ability. Atomic manipulation has been activated. 15 feet long, milky-colored blade made of light particles appeared in his grasp as he swung forward with force. The frost Riken opened its mouth, revealing a set of teeth that looked like massive icicles, and in the next instant, a storm of ice shot out of its mouth. Fuhum, the entire cave turned into a location of extreme weather condition as cold winds mixed with hail and snow spread across the place. Swish, a milky light slashed through the disturbance repeatedly as a silhouette phased through with extreme speed, arriving before the mouth of the creature. Gustav swung the atomic blade upwards as he arrived underneath the chin area of the creature. Bang! The frost Riken whole body was sent flying upwards upon contact, causing it to blast through the ceiling of the cave, which already had a hole due to Gustav's appearance initially. Its whole serpentine-like body with icicles for a crown swept out from underneath the icy ground and elevated into the air as it screeched in pain. Gustav felt the atomic blade didn't manage to so much damage due to the sturdy body of the creature. The force of the swing only managed to blast the creature into the air, but didn't do enough damage. Thump. Gustav leapt into the air through the larger hole that the creature's body had created, leaving the other participants in the cave with looks of confusion. Bang! 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 The sound of more collisions rang out as Gustav assaulted the frost Riken with a barrage of attacks. It couldn't move very fast in the air after getting separate from the ice below, so Gustav was able to easily catch up with it. Another cry was heard in a few seconds after Gustav cleaved a part of its crown off with the atomic blade. There's no time. I need to end this as soon as possible, Gustav thought as he realized that only a few minutes were left. The frost Riken was currently flying upwards in the direction of the floating ice platforms in the sky. Fire has always been effective against ice. Gustav's body suddenly lit up with blue flames. The atomic blade in his grasp disappeared. He joined his palms together as the flames around his figure began to build up. The sway force should help make this even more destructive. As this thought appeared in Gustav's mind, he began to separate his palm, and a blazing circle that looked like a mixture of multiple colored flames could be seen. While it increased in size, the frost Riken arrived before the massive ice floating platforms and hurled them downwards at Gustav. In the next instant, Gustav slammed his palms together, causing the multiple colored flames within to disappear. The frost Riken, who was more than 500 feet above, suddenly felt a rush of hotness from within. As it looked down, a glow could be seen on its belly. As it clawed at its belly in fear and confusion, the glow increased, and it could tell that it was coming from within. In the next instant, a raging flame tore out of its belly and spread to its body. At this same instant, Gustav moved. Thwoosh, his body blasted through the multiple icy platforms, hurling downwards as the atomic blade appeared in his grasp once more. Fwyi, he swung upwards, separating the Frost Raken's head from the rest of its body in mid-air. You have killed a level 3 Frost Raken. A notification popped up in his line of sight afterwards, and he heaved a sigh of relief. If he was a minuter later, he would have failed the daily task. The blazing body of the Frost Raken landed on the ground, right before the participants who were battling it earlier. They stared at it, and then looked upwards with their still confused faces. Did he do this to help us? One of them wondered out loud. However, Gustav was already long gone at this time, so he had no idea what they were thinking. He just needed to kill a Frostrike, and now that the objective had been completed, he was going in search of another. In another part of the fourth disc, a dark figure wore a cloak and wraps of cloth, covering his entire crouched atop a floating frosted cloud. Clunk, an ice-cracking sound rang out as he stabbed his wrapped-up fingers into a part of the ice and pulled out a dark-colored egg. Without saying a word, he stood to his feet with the massive 3-feet-tall egg in his grasp. A wave of darkness began to spread from his being all of a sudden, and thread-like darkness phased out of his belly area. The threads of darkness wrapped around the egg in the next instant and pulled it into the dark figure. The egg disappeared like it was swallowed up by this dark being. Fwyi. He proceeded to leap off the floating frosted cloud and landed in the middle of a frozen line-up of trees region. He began walking forward and soon heard voices coming from up ahead. We should have caught up to him by now, but he keeps moving. If he slows down, we should get to him in 4 days. But that is very unlikely. If we keep focusing on him, we won't get any eggs till the challenge ends. We need to think of another plan. Their voices drifted into his hearing, and the translator he had on, like every other participant, interpreted their alien language. He spotted the source of the voices as he moved further ahead. They were a trio with transparent skins and whitish heads. He could already tell which planet they represented, but it was none of his business. The figure continued on his way forward, passing by silently as their voices slowly grew distant. Let's go after his teammates instead. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Com. Chapter 1184 Young Adventurer. The figure continued on his way forward, passing by silently as their voices slowly grew distant. Let's go after his teammates instead. In another part of the fourth disc, a figure could be seen speeding across the air with a crowd pursuing from behind. The figure was a young earthling with curly black hair and a green dotted glow continuously bleeping on his forehead. Use blink to lose them, Fusarius suggested. The Vaytrain is restricting my use of space abilities, Indrik complained as he kept flying across the air on an invisible platform. Thwaiwe, a pillar of green light, shot past him as he quickly swerved towards the left to dodge it. This wasn't the only attack headed in his direction from behind, as multiple others were shot at him. Thwaiwe, red bolts of energy, dark arcs, icicles, wind blades, electric charges. The crowd that numbered around 20 didn't stop hurling attacks at Indrik, who did his best to escape most of them and counter the ones he couldn't dodge. They'll trap him, one of them voiced from behind. A spherical-shaped net-like glow suddenly shot forward with intensity from behind once more as its blue lines gleamed intensely. Indrik swerved to dodge it as well, but it suddenly increased in size, and Indrik found himself phasing through one of the massive net-like holes. The moment he was within the massive spherical net, he suddenly felt weakened. Indrik's eyebrows furrowed as he noticed the spherical net suddenly start to shrink the moment he found himself within it. He tried speeding forward so he could go through one of the holes in the net before it could shrink to a point where he wouldn't fit. Bam! Indrik's figure got blasted back into the entrapment the moment he arrived before a hole. It was like the massive holes in the net had barriers around them, preventing him from leaving. This is not good. The more it shrinks, the more I weaken, Indrik voiced as he sent forth a wave of telekinetic energy to prevent the entrapment from shrinking further. A Drufurlock must be responsible for this. They make the greatest traps with their abilities, Fusarius voiced. I can't afford to be caught, Indrik stated. I'll take care of the Drufurlock. Prepare to use blink, Fusarius voiced as the green crystal phased out of Indrik's forehead. The crystal floated towards one of the holes in the net behind and phased through easily. Within the crowd of 20 chasing from behind, the green crystal floated towards one of the figures who had squid-like tentacles for arms and orange-colored triangular head. They hadn't noticed the crystal on time as it flew speedily in a beeline, arriving before the Drufferlock in a jiffy. Tianinghai, an immensely bright green flash suddenly spread from the sistel, blinding everyone's sight for a split second. In that split second, the crystal transformed into a greenish humanoid figure which sent a punch hurling at the face of the Drufferlock. Bang! The air shook as the Drufferlock, who was initially flaying its squid-like tentacles to control the entrapment, got sent flying backward. It immediately lost control of the glowing spherical net, which disappeared in the next instant. Flyish Indrik sped forward intensely, the moment he felt his strength return. Fusarius hurried towards him after blinding everyone momentarily and phased back into his forehead. Blink, zing, his figure disappeared amidst a small fluorescent flash in the next moment. Dash, he's gone. Dash, damn it. The figures behind cursed and let out voices of disappointment after Indrik managed to escape. Dash, maybe the Vatrains are in partnership with him. Dash, those lowlives. They must have betrayed us and let the Earthling use spatial abilities. Dash, we didn't, you fools. Dash, we got blinded just like everyone else and lost sight of him. Dash, the Drufferlock let him go. Dash, these motherless creatures. How can you blame us for failing to catch him? A battle soon ensued within the group as they blamed one another for failing to catch Indrik. Blink. Indrik blinked again and appeared hundreds of thousands of feet from his initial location. We should have gone far enough, Fusarius spoke. Indrik began floating upwards at this point till he arrived before a floating frosted cloud. He floated forward and stood atop it. Looks like tailing them all this time paid off. Indrik heaved a sigh of relief as he sat. Did you really take everything? Fusarius questioned. I did. I met all the conditions for taking them out of their hands, so the ability worked fine, Indrik replied. That's up to 32 eggs? Fusarius inquired. With the addition of the 2 I initially acquired, 35. Maybe I shouldn't have intercepted them till they made use of a designated point, Indrik muttered. No, this was the best option. They are of different planetary groups, so they wouldn't have headed to the same designated points since they most likely don't trust each other. Fusarius disagreed. You're right. I should distance myself more from here in the meantime till Big Brother sends the link, Indrik muttered. Young adventurer, we thank you for protecting our town. Here is our token of appreciation for your humble deed. Within what looked like a town square with multiple icy buildings in view, a figure that looked like one of the handlers could be seen passing an orange-colored egg to a beautiful-looking figure with a purplish head tie covering her forehead. The figure nodded while accepting the egg before tapping on a button behind her left ear. Zing, the egg disappeared in the next instant, and she turned around to leave while the others in the vicinity, ranging from children to adults, clapped for her. Elevra soon found herself outside the icy town, and when she turned around, a mist suddenly enveloped its entirety and it disappeared. The tasks might not be very difficult, but they are very time-taking, Elevra mumbled as she turned back around. 3 eggs acquired in 6 days seems a bit slow. Should I try searching for other towns like this to complete tasks, or should I search for possible locations where eggs are stored? Elevra paused as she stared in every direction. What had just happened a while ago was amongst the things Handler 1 mentioned. Besides searching for eggs underground, one could look for these misty towns with icy buildings and receive a task from the town chief. Once this task was completed, under the conditions that no native was harmed, the chief would pass an egg to the person who completed the task. Elevra had found 3 different towns in the last 6 days, completed the tasks given, and acquired 3 eggs so far. She only felt it was too time-taking and was contemplating on finding a different means of acquiring the eggs. Fwish-wish, her eyes suddenly widened as she stepped towards the left speedily, escaping a red beam that shot from behind her. Boom! The red beam slammed into a frosted mountain up ahead, ripping a massive hole straight through its center as it came crumbling down in the next moment. Elevra turned around at this point, spotting the source of the attack. I won't miss next time, so I suggest you hand over the eggs you have acquired. The voice of a cone-shaped being with humanoid hands and a head-sized hole in its chest rang out. An Oxlurkic. Elevra instantly identified the alien, who also happened to be a participant. Why don't you come and take it, if you can? Elevra's eyes dropped as her body began to emit intense purplish fog-like energy. Looks like I will have to encourage you forcefully to relinquish them, and you will sorely come to regret it. The hole in the Oxlurkic chest suddenly gleamed intensely with a deadly red glow. Thyrian, a destructive red beam shot forth from it, causing the air to tremble as it arrived before Elevra. Fwyi. Elevra instantly leapt into the air, dodging the beam which ripped straight through another icy mountain up ahead, causing its collapse. Fwash, her figure sped forward the instant she escaped the attack, leaving a trail of purple along the air. Swyi, arriving behind the Oxlurkic, her palms swung down intensely, but before it made contact with the participant, a hole appeared on its back. Thainan, another destructive red beam shot out from the back of the Oxlurkic, hitting Elevra at point-blank range. Boom. Fool. The Oxlurkic metallic voice rang out after the destructive beam hit, but in the next instant, its one eye widened. Shish, as the beam thinned out, Elevra could be seen floating in mid-air behind the Oxlurkic unscathed. The purplish aura her figure emitted slowly reduced in intensity. Howdy. Bang. Elevra's fist slammed into his back before he could completely utter a word, sending powerful shockwaves across the vicinity as the Oxlurkic body was sent hurling across the air. Is that a designated point? Gustav wondered out loud as he ascended a frosted mountain. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Com. Chapter 1185 Is that a designated point? Gustav wondered out loud as he ascended a frosted mountain. There was nothing in view besides the frozen mountain top and other mountains in the vicinity. However, due to Gustav's perception, which traveled far beyond his current position, he was already picking up on something up ahead. The instant he arrived at the summit of this mountain top, a space in between four mountains positioned on the north, south, east, and west respectively could be spotted. A 10-feet-tall machine shaped like an upside-down funnel with a hole at the top could be spotted in the space. Upon closer look, one could see 7 spherical-shaped slots on its surface as well, and these slots were each the size of an egg. Gustav stood in place for a bit, scouting the vicinity for any other participants that may be around, before leaping forward. Film as Gustav's body sped across the air towards the designated point. His right arm transformed. Drick tusk-like horns protruded from his forearm as his entire arm turned reddish and bulged intensely, becoming muscular. Gustav swung his fist downwards as he descended. Boom! The icy ground caved in, sending a powerful charge across the vicinity as Gustav's fist collided with it. Kaya! Oh! Loud screams rang out in the next instant as frost and ice particles blasted across the place. The 4 frosted mountains on the sides quaked intensely as parts of them came crumbling down. As the fog died down, a massive crater could be seen in the space between the mountains, but surprisingly the machine at the designated point remained unaffected. Roelfadialfa Nam Gustav's figure floated right beside it. He stared down at the bottom of the crater where 2 figures with massive 3-feet-long horns protruding from the middle of their scalp could be spotted. Gravitational manipulation has been activated. A powerful gravitational force suddenly descended upon the place, pinning both figures to the bottom of the 300-feet-deep crater before they could make any move. Blood could be seen spilling out of their mouths and eyes, but Gustav didn't stop. Instead, he increased the gravitational force by a notch, causing bone-cracking sounds to ring out. St up, PL, Ikes. Both participants tried to speak, but Gustav's eyes remained unsympathetic as he stretched his hand downwards. Thias. More cracks appeared at the bottom of the crater, burying the figures of these 2 aliens deeper within. In the next few seconds, they had both stopped struggling. Gustav's expression eased up as he confirmed that they had truly passed out. He deactivated gravitational manipulation and hover in the next instant. Bam! His figure landed before them both, and he stared at their unconscious bodies. Fortunately, you took them out before they could activate their abilities. The system voiced in Gustav's mind. Yeah, the Hextoses are really something when they are given the chance to use their strength. Gustav sighed in relief as he crouched before them. The two who were right in front of him were representatives of planet Hextos, a species Gustav considered formidable. They had been lying in wait for anyone or group that would arrive at this designated point to turn in eggs. Unfortunately for them, Gustav had spotted them at the same time he picked up on the machine in the designated point. Gustav grabbed both their horns after tampering with his dimensional bracelet. Zianin, in the next few seconds, a bright blue light encapsulated both their figures and they vanished. Gustav stood to his feet, once more after successfully sending them away. Partial collapsal transformation has been activated. Gustav's skin turned greenish as he bloated a little. Thump! He stamped his left foot on the ground, and in the next instant, icicle-like spikes began protruding from the edges of the crater. These spikes were so densely merged as they shot out of the ground that there was barely any space left between them. A wall was soon formed, and from a wall the Iro silk continued to grow higher and curve till the entire vicinity was covered like a cage. The designated point had now been barricaded from the outside by Gustav. Hover has been activated. Gustav floated upwards, arriving before the 10-feet-tall machine that was suspended in the air. It's been almost 7 days since the Vinder Egg Challenge began. It's time I called them here, Gustav muttered as he stared at the machine. God Eyes has been activated. Life signs tracking has been activated. Gustav shut his eyes at this point. Black small square, black small square, black small square, black small square. Roalpha Dialpha Inu /. Multiple life signs began to appear in Gustav's mind, which he picked out one after the other. Once they were up to 20, Gustav opened his eyes once again. SJ, he mumbled. Zing, the sacred jewel appeared beside him in the next instant, and Gustav didn't need to utter another word before it understood what it needed to do. Zin, the sacred jewel emitted a bright fluorescent light from its surface. Gustav felt a stream of energy flow into his being as he connected with the sacred jewel, and his mind split into 21 different sections. While his eyes were open, Gustav could see 21 different locations all at the same time. It worked, Gustav muttered as he observed 20 out of the 20 locations, since one of them was his current location. Guys, can you hear me? Gustav voiced. It's difficult fighting with this thing lodged in my shoulder, but I guess I'll survive. Timmy voiced as he kicked the massive white head of a creature away. Quite whining. It's your fault you got injured in the first place. Glade responded without a shred of sympathy. I should have let it hit you, Timmy stated in regret as he watched Glade pull a neon-colored egg from the ice. Yeah, just don't pull it out so we don't get blown to smithereens, Glade voiced before keeping the egg in her storage button. That belongs to us Earthlings. A loud voice drew their attention as they quickly turned towards the east. No, it doesn't. We got here first, Glade stated. Zionsis, Timmy muttered. Hand it over, Earthlings. The 3 transparent skinned figures with whitish heads approached them while coming out of a cave up ahead. It is. Don't bother. Timmy stopped Glade before she could speak. Do they look like they want a reason to you? The only way out of this is to fight, Timmy voiced as his entire figure was suddenly engulfed in a reddish glow. Glade's expression turned serious as her figure glowed up like Timmy's. Dash, what is this? Matching pajamas? Dash, ha. You Earthlings are too cocky for your own good. All 3 Zionsis charged forward in the next instant. The first one swirled like a raging tornado, forming a scarlet storm in an instant, while the other 2 that followed behind caused the grounds on the side to decay and cave in. They manipulate nature. Be careful, Timmy voiced. I know. Before Glade could complete her sentence, a giant thorny vine phased out of the icy ground behind her and wrapped around her figure. FYI, it raised her entire figure upwards in the next instant before slamming her into a mountain, hundreds of feet away. Bang! At this same instant, Team had leaped away from the isolated icy platform he was standing on, which only had caved in grounds around. Fly as his figure traveled across the air towards one of the Zionsis. The raging scarlet tornado suddenly increased in size and began pulling him in. I might need something bigger, Timmy muttered as the reddish glow surrounding his figure increased intensely. Fuhum, a gaunt reddish figure was formed around him. increasing his size by 10 times as he flew into the scarlet tornado with a massive red club forming in his grasp. In the next instant, a loud blast reverberated across the vicinity, and with it came a painful cry. Erf! A figure was sent flying out of the scarlet tornado, which cleared up in the next couple of moments, revealing Timmy within. Bang! At the same instant, Timmy landed on his feet with his massive reddish figure encapsulating beam. 2 robust vines shot towards him from the sides. The club disappeared as Timmy stretched both his arms out and caught the vines, but once he did, the third Zionsis had conjured up gigantic hails which began descending upon his figure from above. Fwyi, a red axe suddenly cut through the air from behind, cleaving both vines in half and freeing Timmy. The instant Timmy was free, he leapt backwards, dodging some gigantic hails that landed on his initial spot. Bang! 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 Glade figure suddenly shot forward from the mountain, which was hundreds of feet away, with glowing red eyes and armor surrounding her figure. Thyanan, a reddish castle materialized from nothing above one of the Zionsis, and Glade landed atop it with force, causing it to descend powerfully. Boom! Chapter 1186, Show-Offs. Thyanan, a reddish castle materialized from nothing above one of the Zionsis, and Glade landed atop it with force, causing it to descend powerfully. Boom! Shockwaves spread across the vicinity upon delivering this destructive blow, which caused the icy grounds to crack and give way once more. Fly! Fly! Timmy was busy dodging the descent of the gigantic hails when he suddenly leapt into the air and kicked one in the direction of the Zionsi chasing him. Bang! Guys, can you hear me? Glade and Timmy suddenly froze as they heard a familiar voice in their minds. Gustav? They yelled out at the same time. Glade, Timmy, you two seem to be in a pinch. Do you need help? Gustav questioned. Now I'll take care of these clowns in a few, Timmy replied. Immediately after Timmy finished saying that, the entire Iceland vicinity began to quake intensely. The whole environment turned dark as storms gathered intensely and heavy winds whooshed. Krrrrryychhhh. Icicles began to appear from the ground, and tornadoes formed very quickly as massive ball-like flames appeared in the skies as well. Up ahead, one of the Zionsis could be spotted stretching forth his hand with a bloodied face and glowing silver eyes. You won't be taking care of anything, he yelled out. The instant the other 2 Zionsis noticed what their teammate was doing, their eyes widened with distress. Yuziki, stop! They both yelled out, but Yuziki ignored their cries of concern. They were well aware of how much toll it took on their bodies when they made use of their sway force to control multiple weather conditions at the same time. Both Zionsis had sustained damage as well after taking the attacks of Glade and Timmy, but they were able to quickly turn into tornadoes themselves and escape the range of weather extremities. Glade and Timmy had been caught up in these weather extremities. They tried to find a way to escape, but they had been completely surrounded by storms. Icicles shooting out of the ground intensely, tornadoes ripping at them from every corner, hailstorm getting shot out from every angle with so much force that would easily rip a hole through 10 persons stacked together. The descending rain of flames as well as the cackling dark clouds up above didn't make matters any better. Timmy had leapt off the ground a bit and got caught up by tornadoes pulling him from every corner as hail shot towards him and icicles protruded out of the icy ground beneath. Even if he and Glade managed to counter some of the attacks physically, he was well aware that they couldn't counter everything. The massive red glowing figure surrounding his figure couldn't act as defense to everything. Looks like I have no other choice, Timmy muttered as the red figure surrounding him like a body of armor shrunk. Thyanan, in the next instant what could be seen was a reddish glow on Timmy's chest as icicles were only inches from penetrating him while Glade was doing her best to counter the ones around her physically. Recalibration. Speed up. The moment he muttered these words, the reddish light spread forth from his figure once more, turning into a dome that surrounded him. The moment the icicles and hailstones made contact with the reddish dome after its little expansion, they turned into liquid. Splash. Timmy's face was doused with a shower of water after they all transformed. Expand. Timmy yelled. Fwyi. The dome suddenly expanded from surrounding just his figure to the entire vicinity of more than 1,000 feet. As the icicles and hailstones phased through the dome, they turned into liquid immediately. However, this wasn't the only change as the tornadoes turned into mild breeze and flames, descending turned to small candle lights before getting snuffed out. The lightning bolt that descended upon the dome turned into a little electric streak that didn't cause any damage as well. The ground beneath had transformed into a stream as no form of ice could be spotted below. What? Yuzuki's eyes widened in shock as he noticed the transformation everything that made contact with the dome underwent. The reddish dome was still spreading across the place and was only a couple of feet away from the Zionsis. Run! The other two Zionsis fled as they spotted it, while Yuzuki remained in place with a defeated look. Yuzuki, you fool, run! One of the Zionsis turned around as they noticed he was still standing in place. However, it was too late. Yuzuki's entire figure was enshrouded by the reddish dome in the next instant before it stopped spreading. Kyre! A loud scream reverberated across the vicinity in the next moment. Show off, Glade voiced while staring in Timi's direction as she stood on the surface of the stream with red glows on her feet. I recall you saying you didn't want this power. Blame your short-sightedness, Timi shrugged. Anyways, let's go somewhere secure to talk with Gustav, Glade stated before turning to the side. Yeah, this battle is over, Timi replied before his entire body glowed up once more. Fwyi. They both sped forward in the next instant, leaving afterimages as they disappeared into the distance. Meanwhile, on a part of the battle zone, a scrawny-looking naked figure with transparent skin and white head could be seen floating on a body of water. His entire skin looked pale and saggy, almost like this participant suddenly aged by 50 years. Yuzuki, one of the Zionsis yelled with a look of horror. All right, since everyone is now attentive, I've connected you all to my mind and location. Can you sense it? Gustav voiced as he floated beside a machine. I can sense what direction to head in. Same here. Man, this is nuts, haha, it's like having comms. Except for the fact that we can also sense what direction to head in and how far away we are. Eldris, Falco, Indrik and the others answered as a conversation ensued between Gustav and everyone. Timi, Glade, did you handle your issue? I saw Zionsis, Gustav inquired. Yeah, we're good now. They came looking for trouble and we handled it. Both of them answered simultaneously. This made Gustav recall what he heard upon his entry into the portal that led him here. The voice sounded like they bore a grudge with him, and now Gustav couldn't help but think it might have been one of the Zionsis. Be careful, Gustav warned. It's fine really. Although it got dangerous, we took care of it, Timi replied. I can see you guys are headed down some kind of canyon, Gustav voiced. Yeah, we wanted to get as far away as possible from our initial location, Glade responded. The last week has been really crazy, man. At the very least I and arrived at the same location together. We all definitely need to gather and move as a team as soon as we can. Other groups are finding their way to each other as well. The others spoke as well after Glade's confirmation. Gustav could see each and every one of them as they journeyed with speed in the direction they were supposed to. Fortunately, no one was currently getting accosted by trouble. All right, I'll give everyone visuals in a few on how my current location looks as well as the rest of you, so you guys can be aware if any one of you is close by, Gustav said before turning to the sacred jewel. Its gleaming body reduced in brightness as it turned completely mirror-like in the next instant. On its circular surface, every single participant current location was displayed as a footage with split sections. Yo, is that a levera? I can see Glade tail. Why does everyone seem to be in different locations? You bastards better have eggs with you because I've been gathering some as well. They voiced out one after the other as a projection of the sacred jewel appeared in each of their locations, displaying the others as well as Gustav like a screen. Since the sacred jewel was also linked to them, no matter how fast or how far they moved, its projection would still follow. Guys, focus. Gustav called everyone's attention back to him, causing them to keep quiet. In the next couple of hours, we would have spent a week on the fourth disc. You know what this means, Gustav voiced out. The screens displaying the current scores from the Vinder challenge will appear. Indrik seemed to instantly figure out what Gustav was talking about. Precisely, Gustav replied. Dash, I'm not following. Do you want us to arrive before it does? Abestos questioned. Dash, I don't think that is even possible, Fink stated. Dash, yeah, and even if it is, I don't think it's what Gustav's wants, Matilda added. It isn't. Do you guys know what will happen once the current scores are released, and everyone is aware of the planets that have acquired one or more Vinder eggs? Upon Gustav's mention of this, Eldris' face beamed up. Oh, now I see what you're getting at, Eldris stated. Chapter 1187. Upon Gustav's mention of this, Eldris' face beamed up. Dash, oh, now I see what you're getting at, Eldris stated. Dash, the groups at the top will most likely become a target, Indrik voiced before Eldris could. Exactly. It's best you all take your time so the scoreboards can put the targets on the others' back while we get to move freely around for the next 1 week till another scoreboard screen gets displayed, Gustav voiced lengthily. Dash, sounds like a great plan. If none of us have made use of any designated point to create a Vinder egg, we should appear at the bottom of the scoreboard. No rank, no target, Eldris stated. Dash, but what about the week after when a new scoreboard appears? Teamy questioned. At the very least, only a week will be left till the challenge ends. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, Gustav replied. The group saw sense in Gustav's plan, but at the same time they wondered if anyone else had thought about it. Gustav at this point already had all 7 colors of eggs in his possession, but chose not to place them in the machine slot yet because of his plan. Another reason Gustav was eager to see the scoreboard was so he could make some calculations. Handler 1 had mentioned that there were a limited number of eggs that could form the Vinder egg on the 4th disc. Gustav wanted to confirm how many was left and make proper plans on how his group would acquire enough to be at the top of the scoreboard next time. Now, all he had to do was wait. Are you okay? Angie opened her eyes to see the concerned faces of some MBO members in medical outfits. She mumbled with a drowsy look as her vision slowly cleared. Her eyes suddenly widened as she recalled something. How long was I out? Angie suddenly sprang up from the bed as she inquired. Relax, officer. Your well-being is the priority right now. A familiar voice resounded as a man in silver MBO outfit and a gem embedded in the middle of his forehead walked in. Grand Commander Cheyenne, Angie muttered. Did the Vinder Egg Challenge begin yet? It began nearly a week ago. You've been out since. Another familiar voice replied her instead of the Grand Commander. Miss Amy, Angie voiced with a respectful but disheartened expression. You don't need to feel down. You did well, and I'm sure they will as well. Just focus on recovery so you can join the main team in the next challenge, Miss Amy replied as she approached the bed. I've let them down by not being available. Angie head lowered as she voiced out. They will survive, Miss Amy replied. They're not doing bad at the moment. I want to watch. Angie tried standing to her feet, but suddenly felt a wave of drowsiness. Miss Amy caught her before she could fall and slowly let her down to the bed. Wait till you recover fully first, she stated after letting Angie go. The power you used was no ordinary one. The toll it took on your body was quite severe, one of the MBO officers in medical outfits announced. Truly no one had ever seen such an ability used by a mixed blood, especially one at the kilo rank. They were still at awe even though it had been 7 days already. Well, it was to be expected since I wasn't supposed to use it till I broke through to the Delta rank, Angie thought as she laid on the bed with a slightly tired expression. You would still be unconscious if not for Officer Crimson, another one of them mentioned. How so? Angie, of course, was happy to hear Gustav's name, but she was also curious as to what he did. Tish, 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 screens began to appear in the sky all over the 4th disc. Gustav stared at the one in the sky within his region with a calculative look. Roelfidi Alpha Naum 2. Planet Zillion, 4 Vinder eggs greater than 1,600 points 3. Planet Ozius, 3 Vinder eggs greater than 1,200 points 4. Planet Tribit, 3 Vinder eggs greater than 1,200 points 5. Planet Hixto, 2 Vinder eggs greater than 800 points 6. Planet Diov, 2 Vinder eggs greater than 800 points 7. Planet Osiris, 2 Vinder eggs greater than 800 points 8. Planet Oxlurk, 2 Vinder eggs greater than 800 points, Inuam 9. Planet Gundabalt, 2 Viander eggs greater than 800 points 10. Planet Indulus Prime, 2 Viander eggs greater than 800 points 11. Planet Klaxosape, 2 Viander eggs greater than 800 points. Gustav stared at the top 100 planets on the screens that displayed the scoreboard. Every one of them had at least 2 Viander eggs, while the ones below 101 had 1 each. From the lower 300s, the other planets had not managed to get a single Viander egg, and unsurprisingly Earth was in the top 800s. Gustav nodded in satisfaction as he took note of the stats. The planets he expected to be at the top were precisely the planets that were currently at the top. The screens displaying the scoreboard remained up there for about 2 minutes before they disappeared. At this time, Gustav had already calculated the number of eggs left that were required to create a Viander egg. Fortunately, around 8,000. 400 eggs required for the creation of the Viander eggs are still unclaimed, Gustav muttered. Which means 1,200 Viander eggs can still be created, the system inputted. Yes, but if we were to subtract the number of those who haven't gotten their eggs to a designated point yet, that number would be lesser, Gustav voiced with a contemplative expression. In other words, in the next 1 week, there is a high probability eggs would no longer be available, the system added. Indeed. The winner would practically be decided, so the last week would just be groups trying to rob other groups of their Viander eggs, so they can rank higher on the scoreboard. Gustav reckoned that the second week would decide things. The last week would just be a dangerous one where groups with high ranks get hunted and chased. They'll have to come up with a plan for the last week, Gustav thought as he tapped his storage button. An holographic tray where 3 feet large eggs could be spotted appeared in his line of sight. Gustav tapped on them, and the eggs appeared in fiscal form. Gravitational manipulation has been activated. The eggs floated around Gustav, and he proceeded to pick them one after the other, slotting them into the machine in front of him. Violet, indigo, orange, neon, dark red, ultramarine, raisin black. Gustav placed the eggs with these colors into the machine and waited. Thionin, it suddenly glowed up intensely with a spectrum of colors and chimed softly a few times before a loud popping sound rang out. Puh! A milky white egg with golden circular stripes shot out of the hole atop the machine in the next instant. Gustav reached out and grabbed the egg, which was the size of a human head. The circular golden stripes around it gave off a mystical glow as Gustav inspected it. So this is a Viander egg. It almost feels like it has other uses besides just being the acquisition goal of a competition, Gustav muttered as he activated God Eyes. God Eyes has been activated. Tick. HNGH. Gustav exclaimed in pain as he felt a sharp stab in his eyes the instant he tried to see through the egg. A protective energy, Gustav deactivated God Eyes while muttering. Kinda suspicious, the system voiced. I agree, but am not curious to the point where I'd jeopardize our acquisition of a Viander eggs, so I won't poke any further for now, Gustav decided as he kept the Viander egg away. He still had about 3 other required colors for creating a Viander egg, but 4 more were needed before he could use the machine at this designated point again. He wanted to wait for his teammates to arrive before sourcing for more of these colored eggs, but from what he could sense, the closest teammate to his location would still take at least 120 hours to get here. The 4th disc was just too massive, and they were unlucky to have spawned very far away. To Gustav, this was still favorable, because at the very least, everyone would manage to get here before the second week ended. If they had spawned farther than this, there was even a possibility they wouldn't meet up till the challenge ended. In the meantime, Gustav had decided he would gather more eggs, and he expected the others to do the same as well while they were on their way here. 3, 2. Gustav had already picked a checkpoint and decided to leave the sacred jewel here till he returned. 1. Zing. A flash of blue light enveloped his figure, and he vanished in the next moment. Gustav reappeared before a flaming frosted tree in the next instant. Up ahead, he could spot another familiar-looking cave. Chapter 1188. Gustav reappeared before a flaming frosted tree in the next instant. Up ahead, he could spot another familiar-looking cave. This was one he already looted, so he didn't bother going in. Instead, he turned to another direction before heading forward. Since these flaming trees that don't get consumed signify checkpoints for areas with caves possessing the same colors of eggs, there's no point in checking the other caves. Gustav was well aware that he would find the same eggs colors he got from this cave earlier, which was still in his possession. He needed other colors, so he had to leave this area. Phew home, Gustav leapt into the air and disappeared from sight in the next instant. That is exactly why I have come here. The leaders of the Alliance need to be warned. Within the seating area of Earth spectators, Miss Amy voiced out. Are you sure? For such a claim, proof is needed or no one would be willing to take your word for it, Grand Commander Cheyenne responded. The eye that appeared is enough proof. They will be idiots to not believe that something is coming. Miss Amy spat with a straight expression. They could come up with a number of things to counter that and not take it as an actual threat. Even though you have myself and the Earth backing your claim, there are still more than 100 other planets in the Alliance and 4 other Alliance leaders. Grand Commander Cheyenne shook his head. He preferred it if they just dealt with the situation themselves instead of bringing the Alliance into it, but Miss Amy claimed that she sensed the threat would be greater than what Earth could handle themselves. She also added that it probably wouldn't be a threat to Earth alone, but didn't reveal that Gustav's claims was the reason she believed the threat would be universal. If she mentioned Gustav, even though she trusted him, they would be even more unwilling to listen to her due to his age. She knew she would only get an audience due to her strength and prestige. I will make them listen. It is for their sakes as well. Miss Amy folded her arms and shut her eyes at this point. I could destroy the 1st to 12th layer of this planet easily, and I can't sense any existence here that is remotely a threat to me yet. Miss Amy couldn't help but recall the eye. She really felt like a small entity compared to just a single organ. It was nerve-wracking. These fools better take it seriously. Miss Amy was well self-aware that she wouldn't usually care about such, but then Gustav was also involved as well as the well-being of their galaxy, so she had to care. Swooshed, a massive frosty-looking snake-like creature blasted out from the icy ground, ascending with speed into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions and sounds of heavy colions rang out as well as the ground blasted open wider, and multiple participants flew out of it. Don't let it get away. One of them yelled as they shot a flurry of attacks towards the flying frosty-looking colossal snake creature. Despite these participants representing different planets, they seemed to be working together in combating this creature. Whoosh! One of them vanished and appeared right in front of the creature. Twiwea. Multiple pieces of massive, frosted objects appeared right above the creature and began to fall. The frosty-looking creature wriggled its way across the air, dodging most of the projectiles. It proceeded to wrap its tail around some of them and hurled it in the direction of the chasing participants. Bang! 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 Attacks coming from the participants giving chase overwhelmed the hurled projectiles, and some of them were close to hitting the creature when it suddenly turned around. Rayra! The instant it opened its mouth to roar, heavy whitish flames shot forth from it. Kyre! Some of the participants yelled as their bodies turned to frost and received grievous injuries. The frost was beyond coldness. Even the air froze and a thick wall of ice had built from the ground to the sky, spreading across the vicinity. Bang! The creature slammed its tail into the participant that initially appeared before it, causing her to spin across the air before slamming into the wall of ice and getting impaled. Pucci-eye, that thing is really stronger than the ones I've faced so far. At this point it might get away with the eggs in its belly. Roelfidialfi Inu Omsum of the uninjured participants complained as they watched it fly away. However, at this moment one of them, who had black wraps of clothes covering his entire body like a mummy, blasted through the wall of ice. Boom! A trail of darkness followed his figure as he chased after the creature. The other participants who were uninjured didn't want to miss the opportunity, so they flew through the hole he left in the wall of ice, chasing right after him. Flyish, the cloak of the dark figure flapped repeatedly as he dashed across the air, catching up to the creature in a couple of moments. Rawr! The colossal creature shot out another massive flames of ice, but the dark figure reacted by forming a blade of darkness and cleaving forward with intensity. Bang! Fwyi! A star of darkness formed as the blade grew in size and kept slicing through the flames of ice till the creature ran out of breath. Boom! 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 The other behind began attacking the creature as all sorts of attacks were shot forward, but it managed to evade most of them. sustaining only a little bit of damage. Thrih, the dark blade in the figure's grasp, transformed into a massive bow which he held forward while flying. The participant aimed it at the creature and fired a giant arrow of darkness that multiplied into 3. Swai. The creature happened to be very fast, so it managed to dodge 2 out of the dark arrows, but the third was angled in such a way that it would undeniably hit the back of its massive head. With the intensity at which the dark arrows ripped through the air, the last arrow would most likely pierce through the skull of the creature from behind. At the last instant, the creature suddenly turned its neck to face the incoming dark arrow and opened its mouth wide. Its icicle-like teeth were revealed for a split second, which came crashing to a close just as the tip of the dark arrow went in a little. Bang! It caught the dark arrow in between its teeth and got blasted backwards for thousands of feet in the air due to the powerful force, but it held it tightly in between its teeth. The creature spun after stopping in mid-air before spitting it away. The dark figure wasn't the only shocked participant here. The others were in disbelief as well, seeing how the creature managed to escape such an onslaught with little to no damage. Pialfindi Alpha, no one Othisish. A lightning streak suddenly appeared in front of the creature, and with that came a 30-feet-long milky-colored blade that was already descending upon its head. Screeve. Bang. A loud sound of collision reverberated across the vicinity as the milky-colored glowing blade cleaved through 3 feet of the creature's head. Its entire body was sent hurling downwards due to the force from the blade after it met with resistance upon cutting 3 feet deep. Rarer. The creature roared again, but this time it was in pain as it made contact with the icy ground beneath. Boom. The figure that the lightning streak transformed into shot downwards with intense speed, phasing through the mouth of the creature. The frost raisin realized its doom an instant later and quickly churned out a pillar of frost to force out the figure that had just infiltrated its mouth. However, this was to no avail as it felt a force tugging against its belly from within after a few moments. Boom! A loud explosion rang out few seconds later, and the creature's belly was blasted right through. A glowing, milky figure radiating with steam flew out of the torn belly with 3 eggs in his grasp. One indigo-colored, the second was dark red, and the last was completely black. You have killed a level 5 frost raisin. Gustav stared at the notification that appeared in his line of sight for a moment before flying upwards. Hey, that doesn't. One of the participants was about to voice out when Gustav flung the completely black egg in the direction of the cloaked figure. The cloaked figure caught the dark egg with a curious-looking eyes, which was the only part of his body that was exposed. Thanks for keeping it busy. The distraction was all I needed for my attack to be successful. After saying this, Chapter 1189. There is something down there. Thanks for keeping it busy. The distraction was all I needed for my attack to be successful. After saying this, Thrarahas, Gustav's figure turned into a streak of lightning, and he disappeared from sight instantly. Dash, hey-ho. Dash, he's gone. Everything happened so fast. Gustav was already long gone before the other participants could try to stop him. You can't have that. It's only fair you give it to me since I contributed a great deal to this battle. One of the participants voiced while pointing at the cloaked figure. No, I am the one who deserves it. I did more. Another participant stated. You fools didn't even come close to me. They soon began arguing on who should take the egg. You'll have to get it from me first, the cloaked figure voiced with a raspy tone before flying off. The participants tried to chase, but soon discovered just how fast he was. A dark streak was left in his wake as he sped away. Thrih. Gustav reappeared in a different location after using Lightning Blitz 5 times. He was now more than 800 miles away from his initial location, yet it had only been a second. Zing, zing. He kept both eggs in his storage button as he decided on which direction to head in next. The initial battle with the level 5 Frostrike was one he stalked since it began. Gustav had watched the creature swallow up the eggs, which caused the participants to give chase. He patiently waited and hid himself far from the battle scene before appearing at a crucial moment when he was sure his attack would hit. The level 5 Frostrike was very evasive, which was why it stayed alive for that long despite the multiple onslaught from the participants. Gustav could already tell that there would be higher levels of Frostrakens, but this wouldn't stop him for searching for more eggs. 2 more to go, Gustav muttered. He only needed 2 more required colors of eggs to complete the set and make another Vinder egg. After deciding on which direction to head in, Gustav flew forward with immense speed. So woof, Shiva, have you gotten it? Within a forest region filled with frosted-looking trees, a figure with 6 limbs and star-shaped green marks all over her face questioned. Not yet, Assistant Captain. We have company, a voice responded in her mind. How long would it take to deal with a bunch of riff-raffs and take just a single egg? The female referred to as Assistant Captain voiced with an irritated tone. Around here were a bunch of participants who looked similar to her, but their star-shaped marks bore different colors. Maybe the company they have are really strong. We should have sent fooder with them, 2 of the 6 others around her commented. One of them is an earthling, won't be easy to handle. Shiva voice resounded in their minds once more. Just when the assistant captain was about to speak, a voice butted in. Deal with the company and bring back that egg. I do not care if there is an earthling there or not. Take care of it. A figure approaching with about 8 others appeared from up ahead. Captain Strum, the assistant captain stated with a tone of respect. There's 4 of you there. Don't embarrass our great planet. Deal with the situation, Captain Strum commanded. Understood, Captain. Multiple voices answered in their minds. Captain Strum arrived before his assistant with the 8 around him, bringing their group to 16 in the number. We must remain the leading team, Captain Strum voiced. Austral. Let's wait till they arrive with the egg, he added. They all nodded in response despite the captain mentioning only the assistant captain's name. The Draconids had so much advantage over other planets since they had found a way to arrive at the same location together from the moment they entered the 4th disk. They also had the ability to communicate with each other using their minds. Due to being together with all of these perks from the start, they gained an upper hand which they made use of well to become number 1 in the Vinder Challenge. The Draconids were already one of the most powerful forces in the competition. Moving together to acquire eggs made them even more challenging considering other participants they met would barely have more than 2 or 3 as a group. It was very easy to overpower others and claim eggs for themselves. In another location, a group of participants could be seen treading across a massive ice platform high in the sky. This ice platform was shaped like a floating tower, and there happened to be entrances within. Bang! A golden beam slammed into a part of the massive icy floating platform, causing it to tremble slightly, but it seemed to have missed a dark figure who was speeding across the surface. A massive dark claw extended from this figure and swiped downwards with intensity. Bam! It slammed into the source of the beam, which was Onothed participant. Kairar. The participant cried out as they fell from the platform towards the ground in the distance. They are mine. The dark figure voiced out as he stood on the floating platform, undisturbed by gravitational laws. Multiple attacks were sent forth from below in the next instant, causing the figure to dash into one of the entrances on this floating icy platform. Bang! 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 The entire platform trembled once more at impact, yet it was barely damaged due to its massive size, although there were already multiple holes all across it. My idiot liege. It's time you stopped playing fair and kill the bastards who dare to oppose you. Shut it. The dark figure who had an ominous-looking black star on his forehead yelled as he leapt upwards. Bang! 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 He broke through multiple floors of ice within the massive floating ice tower as his body ascending to the peak. The peak of this icy tower happened to be thinner than the rest of its lower parts. The instant the figure cloaked in the aura of darkness arrived there, the fog of darkness emitting from his being suddenly increased in intensity. Swerving his hand in a circular motion, a sharp blade formed from the intense darkness slashed through the top of the ice tower. It was like a cap had been formed as the figure placed himself within the space at the peak of the tower that had been separate from its lower part. Massive hands formed from the darkness which held onto the cut-off part from the ice tower before powerfully flinging the peak of the ice tower into the distance. The peak of the ice tower cut through the sky with intense speed with the dark figure within it. The strength at which it was catapulted into the sky caused it to move at incredible speed, leaving the others behind unable to catch up. He got away. One of the participants yelled with a look of dissatisfaction. The others looked into the sky with expressions of annoyance as well, but in the next instant, thum, 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 thuum, for illusionary-looking figures with multiple limbs, ascended into the sky. They were just as quick as the top of the ice tower, if not quicker. They soon disappeared in the direction of the tower peak and dark figure in a second, leaving the rest of the participants astounded. Calm. It's been 2 days already, the system voiced in Gustav's mind. Yeah, at least I've managed to gather 6 eggs. Just one more needed to create another Vinder egg, Gustav replied. Falco should be close to the designated point by now, the system reminded. He would. I can sense that he is indeed close, but then he should have gotten there like an hour ago. Gustav couldn't view them at the moment because he would have to tap into God Eyes again. He didn't want to do that currently because of his present location. Maybe he got sidetracked, the system stated. Yeah, well, so long as he is okay, Gustav mumbled as his eyes turned into slits. I gotta focus on this right now, he added as he arrived before the edge of a deep rift. SSHSHHHSSHHH, there was utter silence in the environment as Gustav stared down at what looked like a divide on the 4th disc. It was so lengthy that the end of this rift on the ground couldn't be seen with the naked eyes. However, it wasn't only lengthy, it was also deep and wide. It was like staring into the abyss as darkness was all that could be seen from the top. One also couldn't see where the land was supposed to continue beyond the ledge. A spectrum of glowing colored lines were the only things that could be spotted in the distance. It was both an amazing and mind-boggling sight at the same time. Anyone would think they have arrived at the edge of the 4th disc if they saw this, Gustav muttered. Indeed, however, you and I are aware that there is something down there. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Calm. Chapter 1190 That was reckless. Anyone would think they have arrived at the edge of the 4th disc if they saw this, Gustav muttered. Indeed, however, you and I are aware that there is something down there, the system added. It is pretty deep though. Gustav's eyes squinted. There was no way to tell if anyone was down there from this height, but Gustav's intuition told him there was definitely danger and fortune at the bottom, or at least on the way to it. You're not telling me everything again, right? Gustav said with a suspicious tone. Since you already know how things are, why do you still bother asking? The system retorted. TCH, Gustav proceeded to step forward at this point. Fyi, his body began to rapidly fall through the air into the depths of the unknown. Surprisingly, as he descended, the darkness had reduced due to the glowing lines which he occasionally phased through during his descent. However, mist became visible upon further descent, which became denser and denser, impairing visual capabilities. The mist around him had become too dense that one couldn't even see their own body, but Gustav's high perception made it so this wasn't a problem. 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, 40,000 feet, 50,000 feet. It felt like Gustav had been falling for ages, but he didn't wish to increase his speed just yet because he was unaware of what to expect. 100,000 feet, 110,000 feet, 120,000 feet, 140,000 feet, 160,000 feet, 200,000 feet, 300,000 feet. As Gustav continued to descend, he began to feel moist. Usually the dense fog was enough to make one feel moist, but this was different. Gustav suddenly felt himself phase through a shower of liquid. Where did that come from? He was still falling through the air, so he was dumbfounded as to how liquid appeared in midair. As he fell further, he could feel drizzles on his body. His perception picked up on a floating waterfall far towards the east. He was still very far from the bottom of wherever this led, yet a giant body of water was falling from midair. 400,000 feet, Gustav kept falling, but the instant he crossed the 200,000 feet mark, he suddenly felt an intense pressure. Thaya. His body began to fall faster, like the gravitational laws had changed. An impending sense of danger assaulted his senses as his body got pulled further downwards. He was falling 4 times faster than before. At this point, Gustav finally decided to do something. Hover has been activated. His body paused in mid-air, defying the unexpected change in gravitational force. He could finally sense a kind of distortion thousands of feet below. There's something wrong there. Gustav grabbed a snack from his storage space and dropped it. Fyi, God Eyes has been activated. His sight followed the snack as it dropped like a rock despite its small size. When it reached the distance where Gustav sensed the distortion, the green-colored snack turned monochrome before disappearing. Gustav could see that he hadn't gotten to the bottom of this place. In fact, it seemed like he was still a far distance, yet the snack disappeared instead of continuous descent. Gustav dropped another after moving a couple of feet towards the right, and the same thing happened. It's not transporting them to another dimension or anything, the system voiced. Yeah, I can tell. It doesn't give off any spatial energy. Whatever is down there instantly erased them from existence, Gustav muttered. Looks like you're not so dumb after all, the system chuckled. Wind, fog, rain, nothing can get past that point, and we still haven't arrived at the bottom, Gustav added. His perception picked this up due to the wind, water, and fog disappearing the instant they crossed that particular juncture. What are you gonna do? The system inquired. It's pretty simple. I can still see beyond that point, so it means that even if it has the capacity to erase things from existence, wind, rain, fog, seeing through means it is unable to erase light. Most likely cause light is too fast, Gustav voiced lengthily. You're not as fast as light, though, the system pointed out. True, but I don't need to be that fast. I just need to be fast enough to move past that point before I get erased from existence. From the looks of things, it's only a layer, Gustav explained. And do you know how fast you are meant to move, or you're just gonna gamble with your live? I praised you too fast, you're still dumb, the system stated with a tone of ridicule. The gamble of death brings a certain thrill, doesn't it? A smirk appeared on Gustav's face. No, I am uninterested in engaging in such foolishness. Find me another host if you're seeking death, the system yelled as it appeared in holographic format before Gustav. Hee, we're in this together. A mad expression of excitement appeared on Gustav's face, causing the system's human but holographic look to pale. ×2 power boost has been activated. Ultimate combination has been activated. Immense energy radiated from Gustav's being as he began to rapidly transform. His skin turning silverish and a hint of gold with long horns, muscular frame and pointy 16 feet long tail. SSHHSHHSHHH, the fog surrounding him were swept away, restoring visibility to the vicinity. As the energy his figure exuded climbed to the peak, Gustav stared down and activated another ability. Lightning Blitz has been activated. His figure turned into a streak of lightning that disappeared downwards in less than an instant. Gustav had never activated Lightning Blitz in this form before, so the speed was like nothing he had ever reached. Thrirai, a loud sound of collision reverberated across the vicinity as the lightning strike turned a little pale when it reached a point below, before returning to its original color. A small crack had appeared at that point, but soon disappeared afterwards. Gustav had managed to cross almost 2 million feet in a single second. It was the fastest he had ever gone, and although he was a little hindered when he arrived at the erasing layer, he managed to break past that point. Thrara, Gustav returned to his initial state after reaching a particular distance down and stared at his surroundings. You lost an arm, the system stated. It will grow back, Gustav responded with an unbothered tone, ignoring the fact that he was currently missing a left arm. That was reckless, the system nagged. I know, Gustav replied once more with an unfazed tone. Looking around him now, he could see floating diamond-like platforms in mid-air all across the place. The bottom of this location was still quite a distance away, but Gustav could finally sense it with his perception. Oh, it is packed, Gustav muttered with a tone of wariness. Yes, frost rakens are everywhere, the system stated. More than that, there are other creatures that are not on the surface and that place, Gustav voiced while staring in a particular direction. From his current height, nothing could be seen downwards, but with his perception, he was able to make out dark ridges, floating fiery mountains and frost mountains in different areas, caves as well as territorial regions where unknown-looking creatures could be seen in droves. Going down there was like trying to commit suicide. It was practically a haven of monstrosities. The creatures numbered in hundreds of thousands, and each one was incredibly dangerous. Even the frost rakens in the floating frosted mountains were very high-leveled compared to ones on the surface. This wasn't something Gustav just wanted to jump into, however. Now it makes sense why this place harbors so much danger, Gustav voiced as his sight focused on a particular item on the peak of a floating mountain. Ready-made viander eggs, the system girly voice uttered. And there are numerous of them in this place. How come the handler never mentioned this? Gustav wondered, but immediately had multiple theories appear in his mind which gave him the answers he needed. One of the theories included how multiple participants would lose their lives if they came into contact with such a place after being aware that there were viander eggs down here. If there was a way to skip gathering 7 colored eggs and heading to a designated point to make a single viander egg, everyone would be eager to try it out regardless of how dangerous it would be. Gustav recalled one thing Elder One mentioned. There are still a couple of mysteries, but the rest will be left for you youngsters to uncover by yourselves. Gustav decided to push all the unnecessary questions to the back of his mind for now as he focused on the main task ahead. I need to get some viander eggs without being noticed or gathering as low attention as possible to myself, he stated. Looking at the current situation, it seemed nearly impossible to get hold of any viander egg without attracting the attention of the waves of monsters down there. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool.com. Chapter 1191. Looking at the current situation, it seemed nearly impossible to get hold of any viander egg without attracting the attention of the waves of monsters down there. Despite Gustav's current strength, it wasn't smart to attract the attention of thousands upon thousands of powerful monsters. This is the best time to use that. A grin appeared on Gustav's face as he leapt towards one of the massive diamond-looking floating platforms. Back off! Accompanied with a loud yell, a wave of darkness blasted across a radius of nearly 30,000 feet. The frosty-looking trees in the vicinity were instantly decimated as they blasted to smithereens while the mountains crumbled. For illusionary-looking figures with multiple limbs and shadowy beings hovering above them stood in the midst of the blast, nearly unaffected. That is impressive, Earthling, however. If you do not hand over the eggs, we will not spare you. One of the figures who had a dark and massive being hovering over her stated with a threatening tone. As a fellow leading planet of the Alliance, we are trying to be nice here, so just comply. Another one of the 4 Draconets stated. It is mine. Come and take it if you dare. Falco responded as the mark of darkness on his forehead grew. Don't blame us for being forceful. Another Draconet with a 14 feet tall shadowy being hovering over him yelled before charging. The other 2 who also had odd-looking shadowy beings behind them charged forward as well. FYI, the first to arrive before Falco was the shadowy being built like a minotaur behind the female Draconet participant. Kaya! Glowing beams appeared in its mouth and eyes as it forcefully swung both fists in a clapping format, attempting to crush Falco's fragile-looking figure in between its massive hands. Thyrurch, 2 dark hands bursted forth from Falco's sides, stopping both fists before they could make contact with him. At the same instant, one of the Draconets appeared from above, as both him and his shadowy being hacked downwards with glowing blades. More dark hands phased out of Falco's figure, and this time with claws as they slashed upwards to meet with the glowing blades. Bang! 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 Clang! 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 The battle had only begun a few moments ago, yet the surroundings were already in a state of destruction. The other 2 Draconets has ambushed Falco from behind, and at this point Falco had to turn around to block and attack himself. Bang! Bang! Throwing a couple of fists at their real selves, the female Draconet blocked Falco's attacks while the 4th Draconet participant sent 4 arms swinging towards Falco at the same time. Falco managed to jump backwards, dodging the onslaught of multiple limbs, but he still had to focus due to the shadowy beings that had hovered above the Draconets. Multiple hands swung towards his back the instant he landed on his feet, which he quickly deflected with more dark arms phasing out of his being. Bang! 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 Falco barely managed to dodge their hits and was slowly starting to take damage without being able to successfully land a single attack on any of them. The longer the Draconets engaged Falco, the more he kept getting pushed back. Since they were not in any way weak, one of them managed to land a hit on him. Bang! Falco's figure was sent flying, and at this same moment, one of the gigantic shadowy figures which was up to 200 feet tall descended upon him from above. Boom! Destructive shockwaves spread across the vicinity, bringing along cracks as the already decimated surroundings caved in even more. The massive shadowy being stood in place with a condescending gaze as the Draconites heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, that earthling got crushed. Good job, Cyrilla. They praised the female Draconette who happened to be the anchor of the massive shadowy being that stomped Falco. Shiva. Then, Cyrilla was about responding when her face froze. Blerg. She vomited a mouthful of green blood in the next instant. Cyrilla. Shiva yelled just as a loud ripping sound reverberated across the air. Throruhutch, a figure tore through the massive 200 feet shadowy being, from the bottom to the top, causing it to slowly dissipate like smoke. Falco could be seen hundreds of feet above, after ripping through the shadowy figure. The dark mark on his forehead increased in size as he descended with a look of anguish. So that is your weakness, Falco muttered as dark wings sprouted out of his back. Fwaiwiyayi, stretching his right hand to the side. A massive blade of darkness phased out, and he slashed forward the instant he arrived before the Minotaur-built shadowy being. Roelfidi Alpha Inu the being tried to counter by shooting out pillars of beams from its mouth and eyes, but Falco evaded swiftly with his slash, traveling forward intensely. Thrire. The head of the Minotaur-built shadowy being was cleanly severed, as it slowly dissipated after the damage, just like the last one. Another one of the Draconites with orange-shaped stars all across his body puked out a mouthful of blood as he fell to his knees. 2 down, 2 to go, Falco muttered as he turned to face the third. The bastard is going for our encores. Stop him. Shiva yelled to the other one as they turned illusionary and leapt into the air. Fuhome, Falco was met with resistance as he arrived before the third shadowy being. The other 2 Draconites had arrived by his sides and were sending out fist strikes. 8 fists were approaching different parts of his body at the same time from the sides, while he had already conjured up a powerful attack for the shadowy being in front of him. Falco could tell that, if these shadowy beings received a certain level of damage, they would disappear and their bearers would also take damage. He had 2 choices at the moment: go on with the attack and cause the third encore to disappear, or block the attacks of the 2 on his sides. While he could try to do both, if he made use of lesser force due to trying to defend when striking the encore, it would still be standing and it would make the Draconites more careful. Falco decided to put more power into his attack, as the dark blade phasing out of his side turned into a gigantic claw which he swung down upon the 32-legged shadowy being in front of him. Slosh. Bang. 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 The entire shadowy being was cleaved into multiple halves as the ground split open from the intensity of the strike. However, at the same instant, bang. 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 Multiple fists slammed into Falco's body, sending him flying like a ragdoll as blood oozed out of his nose and mouth. Blerg. One of the 2 Draconites who had just successfully landed hits on him puked blood in mid-air and began falling to the ground as he turned lightheaded. Pula. Shiva yelled with a tone of exasperation as he descended swiftly and caught his teammate before he landed on the ground. Bang. 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 Falco's body slammed into multiple trees thousands of feet away as he got blasted away, causing them to snap and break into smithereens. Thrire. Dark tentacle-like strings shot out of his body and stabbed into the ground, forcefully bringing his body to a halt before he could break through any more things. Core. Falco coughed twice, staining his outfit with blood. 1 left. His heavy breathing slowly reduced as his body descended. He stepped on the ground and slowly stood to his feet. You will pay for harming my teammates. Silva yelled from up ahead. You should have thought twice before coming after me. Falco spat blood to the side with a look of determination. The shadowy figure behind Shiva grew in size, becoming more muscular as it sprouted more limbs with glowing blades in its grasp. Tuhush, tuwoosh. They charged at each other in the next instant, sending ripples of destruction across the vicinity. It's working. You're only lucky. This would have gone way worse if you didn't have this. You can't just admit that I'm smart. That would mean I am feeding your delusion if I did. Fuck you. A snake-like whitish creature could be seen flying upwards, across the side of a frosty mountain. Its physical features were no different from that of a frost Raikin, so even with the hundreds of frost Raikins swimming in the air around this floating frosty mountains, it blended in with them. Although it wasn't as massive as they were, it was no doubt a kindred. The creature soon arrived at the summit of the floating frosted mountain, which happened to have a multicolored 3 feet tall egg sitting atop it. Here comes the tricky part. So long as I am fast enough, they shouldn't notice the switch. The smaller frost Raikin approached the multicolored egg, which happened to be a Viander egg. Chapter 1192, 30 seconds countdown. The smaller frost Raikin approached the multicolored egg, which happened to be a Viander egg. Although the other frost Raikins in the vicinity were not suspicious, they still had eyes on the Viander egg. The smaller frost Raikin flew around the Viander egg and kept circulating for a period of time. Fish mist was instantly formed around the egg, impairing the vision of the frost Raikins around. Usually the frost Raikins would have enhanced capabilities whenever they were close to anything cold, so a mist wasn't supposed to impairing their vision. However, this mist wasn't formed from frost or coldness. It was a different type of mist. The frost Raikins became suspicious at this point and flew into the mist after a few seconds. The mist began to die down at this point, and when they were finally able to see the summit of the floating frosted mountain again, nothing was out of place. The Viander egg remained seated atop. However, the smaller frost Raikin was nowhere to be found. The other frost Raikins just assumed it flew somewhere else during the mist covering, so they still didn't think much of it. Minutes later, a figure appeared more than 10,000 feet away from the floating frosted mountain. He stood above a massive floating diamond-like platform with a Viander egg in his grasp. That was easy, Gustav muttered. Only because you were smart enough to acquire the form of a frost Raikin initially, the system voiced. Even with that, it would have caused alarm had I not exchanged it with a fake, Gustav stated. Before Gustav took on the form of a frost Raikin, he did a little painting with a white egg he had taken from one of the caves. White wasn't one of the required eggs to make a Viander egg, but Gustav had taken this one, just like he took many others that would be considered useless as well. Cases like this was where the usefulness of these colors of eggs came into place. Gustav painted the egg to look just like a Viander egg and replaced it with the one at the summit of the frosted mountain. From the moment he stirred up the mist, he was already gone. He had made use of his cognitive concealment ability to mask his presence. One more Viander egg successfully acquired, Gustav stated before keeping the egg in his storage button. Going after the others won't be as easy, the system voiced. I know, especially since I don't have the forms of the other creatures. Gustav turned to stare in the southwest direction. A platform growing out from the rocky wall in the distance looked like the massive floating diamond-like rock he was currently standing on. However, this one seemed to be stationed on the wall, for times as large as a skyscraper, and had an entrance. Creatures who only had a massive owl-shaped head for a body and thin but gigantic fowl-like wings could be seen flying around the entry point. Besides this, they had sharp claws for beaks, and their legs looked like it could easily rip a person in two like paper. While it looked like there were only about 30 in number flying around the entry point, Gustav's perception had picked up on the high numbers that were nestling within the platform. They were over 50,000 feet from his location, yet Gustav's perception had infiltrated their territory to the point where he could already tell where the Viander egg was. Why do they all keep the Viander eggs like it's some kind of trophy? This was amongst Gustav's many questions. On the surface, the frost Raikins protected the required eggs to form a Viander egg like it was their child, and here, thousands upon thousands of creatures protected just a single Viander egg. Gustav couldn't complain. He had managed to save days of wandering up there by getting a single Viander egg. He didn't want to be too greedy, but one wasn't enough. Zing, a circular metal-like button appeared in Gusta's grasp, and he proceeded to put it on his forehead. Cognitive concealment has been activated. Gustav's presence completely disappeared to the point one wouldn't be able to tell if he was even around them unless they directly set eyes on him. His footsteps made no sound. If he tapped on anything, it made no sound. His speed also made no sound, as it would always generate whooshes. Everything was masked. He'll have approximately 30 seconds to get in there and take the Vinder egg out before I am spotted, Gustav stated as he tapped the button on his forehead. Thishwai, his entire figure instantly turned invisible. Now he was at a near-perfect state of concealment. Gustav's body transformed as he leapt into the air. Dash has been activated. The timer had started counting down. There was no sound as he arrived before the entrance of the diamond-like platform only a second after the countdown had started. 29 seconds, wings sprouted out of his back in his invisible state as he glided across the air, evading the creatures around the entrance so as not to make contact with them. Oh, so they're called Ziaphanos. Gustav took note of the species name as he flew into the diamond-like platform. The instant he got in, flashes of bright reflections assaulted his eyes. The gravitational force within the diamond-like platform shifted, causing Gustav to bear the weight of 100 tons. Gustav was surprised by the shift and paused for a bit as the pressure bore down on him. However, the weight was really nothing, and he resumed flying a moment later since it had only startled him a little. The Ziaphanos kept flying across the place, unrestrained by the difference in gravitational force between the exterior and the interior. This made Gustav realize that these creatures would be very fast, so he had to be careful so as not to attract their attention. 25 seconds, the scenery within the diamond-like platform was quite inexplicable. It looked much larger on the inside compared to how anyone would have thought. The shards and icicle-shaped objects reflecting rays of light across the vicinity could be seen hanging from the rocky walls and even the ground. However, one stood out the most. "It's up there," Gustav said internally as he stared at the massive shard in the middle of the Ziaphanos territory. This shard was so massive, it towered high up, reflecting blinding rays across the entire vicinity. Due to its height, the ceiling of this diamond platform was thousands of feet above. Swarms of Ziaphanos flew around the massive shard, similar to how the frost rakens were flying around the floating frosty mountain earlier. Just as initially calculated, there were over 10,000 of them flying around the shard and even more just moving about the place. The space within their territory was like a mini-city. Despite the increment in gravitational force, Gustav flew upwards with speed. He was well aware of his limited time and didn't want to waste even a second. The usual vibrational waves and turmoil, his speed would cause the environment had all been masked by the cognitive concealment ability, and the invisibility button just made things smoother. However, as Gustav flew higher, he noticed the difference in gravitational force. For every 50 feet scaled, the pressure would increase by 100 tons. Gustav noticed this when his speed decreased after scaling up to 1,000 feet in an instant. He knew that with his current speed he would be way faster, but then the pressure was already bearing the weight of up to 2,000 tons, while still maintained flight. The Ziaphanos who were higher up still flew around the shard unrestrained, which was quite surprising to Gustav. With this he realized that the ones lower were weaker than the ones at a higher height. If Gustav got noticed, the chances of escaping would be quite low considering he would be spotted by their strongest first. 23 seconds, Gustav's brain processed information very quickly, so he already well aware of the current situation. He increased his speed and flew even higher, fighting against the pressure. By the time Gustav scaled 2,000 feet, he felt like he was carrying an entire city on his shoulders. He suddenly and swiftly swerved backwards, dodging the massive body of a Ziaphano that changed trajectory in mid-air, nearly bumping into him. The creatures were more up to 300 feet large. Gustav's size compared to theirs was like a grasshopper standing beside a human. 21 seconds, he resumed flight upwards after distancing himself a bit from the area of the swarm circulating the shard. Bearing the force of more than 2 million kilograms upon his entire being, Gustav kept flying upwards till he was on a couple hundred feet away from the top. He could finally spot the Vinder egg above, firmly seated on the tip of the massive shard. 19 seconds, follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Calm. If he tried to make use of the dimensional bracelet right now, it would get crushed. Fly. Fly high. The Ziafanos charged at Gustav with intense speed that clearly surpassed his despite their massive size. Zing, after sending the Vinder egg to his storage device, Gustav's wing rescinded into his back, causing him to free fall. Swayai. The Ziafanos quickly changed trajectory and flew after his falling body. Despite his body descending like a falling star, the Ziafanos soon caught up to him and clawed at his body in a bid to rip the intruder to pieces. Gustav's right arm transformed, becoming black, scaly, and muscular as he grew 3 pairs of sharp-looking claws which he proceeded to swung upwards in response to the massive talons ripping at him. Xian. Clang. Roelfadialpha Inu Omupon collision. A sharp and intense metallic sound of collision rang through the vicinity, sending forth shockwaves alongside. The territory quaked once more, alarming the rest of the Ziafanos around after Gustav's claws collided with the talons of the Ziafano that first arrived before him. Twiwaya. Gustav's body shot downwards even faster than before as he had made use of this collision to escape the encirclement of the Ziafanos. Bang! The instant Gustav landed on the ground, which hadn't even been a second yet, he sped forward in the direction of the entrance. However, the entire place was already swarming with Ziafanos who were headed for the entrance, as well, and Gustav's speed was lacking compared to theirs. Swoosh! Sprouting wings once more, Gustav activated as many speed-related skills as he could to boost his flight. Leaving a trail of white blur across the air, Gustav arrived at the entry point in less than a second, since he was no longer carrying the weight of almost 3,000 tons. Unfortunately, the entry point happened to be packed with hundreds of Ziafanos who were already aware of the intruder in their midst. They all bit and clawed at Gustav intensely as he approached them. Haven't used this in a while, but it should help. A red-hilted katana with dark blade appeared in Gustav's grasp. The instant he held onto it, a wave of alarmingly powerful energy was sent across the surrounding like a warning. Electric arcs coated the blade of this katana as it glowed intensely, increasing the unease in the environment. Gustav raised this katana with vigor and slashed down at the incoming Ziafanos blocking the entry point. Alpha Theta Theta Nu Epsilon, a disastrous red arc, hundreds of feet long, swept forward with intensity, carrying lightning streaks with it after Gustav slid downwards. Boom! The entire Ziafanos territory rumbled fiercely as the red arc cut through the first Ziafano in its path, as well as destroying the entry point by making it even larger than it originally was. Multiple Ziafanos were blasted backwards as lightning streaks also spread to them, burning a few of their feathers. The Ziafanos happened to have very sturdy bodies, so only 3 Ziafanos who were directly in the path of the arc had been sliced into 2 scorched halves while the others were barely incapacitated. The space that had been left in between gave Gustav the opportunity to fly out of their territory. Zii, Zitzii, Zii. 3 massive talons suddenly appeared above Gustav the instant he arrived outside the territory, slashing down at him vigorously. Gustav didn't even have the chance to blink as he realized he had already been surrounded by up to 60 massive Ziafanos, and more were incoming. These were the Ziafanos who were at the topmost part of the shard. They had instantly caught up with Gustav the moment he managed to get past the entry point. They were insanely fast. However, now that Gustav was out of the intense gravitational force area, he was confident in escaping their onslaught. Lightning Blitz has been activated. 3 Gustav turned into a lightning streak and disappeared straight into the east direction, tearing right through the wing of one of the Ziafanos. He instantly reappeared 800,000 feet away from his initial location. He heaved a sigh of relief after successfully escaping far from the angry Ziafanos. He had given them a very wide distance, but so as not to take any chances, Gustav decided to activate Lightning Blitz 2 times more. 3 He was now millions of feet away from their territory, practically in another area entirely. Gustav looked around and noticed this area was a little misty but had a weird-looking structure erected on the ground thousands of feet below. He was about to head downwards when he felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere. It sounded like a ripping sound that grew increasingly louder by the millisecond. 3 3 Gustav's eyes widened as dark streaks cut across the air in the distance and arrived across him. These streaks were the same massive Ziaphanos guarding the top of the massive shard he had stolen the Viander egg from. Shit. The reason POVs get switched occasionally is so that you guys can get faint updates of different scenarios occurring in variety of locations across the fourth disc. If you guys prefer only Gustav's POV during the challenge, let me know in the comments section. Also, follow me on TikTok, Timvik_. Chapter 1194 Gustav versus the Ziaphanos. Shit. Gustav had suspected that they would be extremely fast the moment they left the intense gravitational force area. However, he hadn't expected that they would be anything remotely close to this speed. They followed you, the system voiced. Thanks, Captain Obvious. You don't think I know that? Gustav nearly yelled this out loud. No, I mean they. The system was about to add something else when Gustav activated another lightning streak. 3RS. There's no point. Look behind you. I know, Gustav voiced as he turned around to see black streaks appear before him once more after scaling close to 1,000,000 feet in 1 second. They are. The system was about to add something once more when the Ziaphanos reached for Gustav. Die, vermin. One of them yelled. Zwoi. Why? They were extremely fast, causing their slashes to send sharp and massive arcs forward that tore through the air. Gustav's body bloated a little and turned greenish as Iroh silks sprouted out of his body like spikes, covering him up. Bang, 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 slash. Multiple sounds of heavy collisions rang out as the Iroh silk along with Gustav got blasted backwards intensely. They traveled speedily across the air with the Iroh silk crumbling to little pieces as Gustav crashed through multiple diamond-like floating platforms. The hundreds of Ziaphanos flew after him in order to make sure they finished the job, but the instant they got close to the diamond-like floating platform Gustav's body was embedded in, an intimidating energy spread forth. Gustav had used ultimate combination. He climbed out of the hole his body got embedded into with a powerful energy cascading forth from his being. The air rippled continuously as it felt like space was twisting due to the strength of the form he had just taken. The Ziaphanos were well aware that the so-called vermin they were looking at was no ordinary being. However, they seemed confident in their numbers. Kill him and take back the Sifa, one of them yelled as they charged forward. This is troublesome. I guess I have no choice. Gustav charged in their direction as well. He wasn't ready to leave this place yet, and there was no guarantee that he could use the dimensional bracelet to return fast. Time was a luxury, each as powerful as level 250 mixed breeds. Gustav had to admit he had never done something so crazy before. Level 250 mixed breeds were quite rare on Earth, and each of them were extremely powerful. Their strength was equivalent to a beta-ranked mixed blood, and yet he was going against more than 100 of them at once. Swoosh, the first 3 Ziaphanos that arrived before Gustav swung their talons at him. Gustav reached out to grab the first one, while his hands were coated with milky-colored energy. The talons, which could easily rip an entire city in two, just from the wind generated with its slashes, were stopped by Gustav. FYI, he spun to the right and flinging the entire massive 500 feet large creature in the direction of his associate. Kiath. The Ziaphano cried out as its associate talons ripped through its right wing. White blood squirted out like a fountain, while the Ziaphano fell from great heights, unable to make use of its damaged wing. Bang! At the same instant, the sharp talons of the third Ziaphanos slammed into Gustav from behind. FYI. Fortunately, he had conjured Iroh silk behind him. However, the Iroh silk crumbled instantly upon collision, sending him flying across the air for hundreds of feet. In his years of using the Iroh silk, this was the first time any creature was able to damage it with just a single strike. The Ziaphanos were truly fearsome creatures. Gustav had taken a little damage from that hit despite the Iroh silk, but he quickly stopped himself in mid-air as he was flying towards the triple claw's beak of another Ziaphano. Tririon. A massive destructive dark and purplish energy beam formed in the mouth of the Ziaphano he had stopped before. With the way the air trembled, Gustav could tell that this was no ordinary attack. Whoosh! He sped forward and swung his fist upwards with intensity. Boom! It sounded like a thunderbolt as Gustav's fist slammed into the jaw of the Ziafano, causing its entire head to tilt backwards while it got catapulted away by the force. Thuum, the energy it was initially gathered, exploded in its beak, causing the head of the Ziafano to explode to smithereens. Boom! The residual energy blasted across the place, sending forth charges that also slammed into Gustav. Being small has both advantages and disadvantages. Gustav realized as the Ziafanos around were not in any way affected by the blast. The Ziafanos had swung out their talons once more, causing Gustav to quickly create Iroh silks. Bang! 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 Gustav puked blood as his body got blasted thousands of feet away after the Iroh silk he constructed around himself repeatedly crumbled. The Ziafanos were unrelenting, and he had only taken out about 3 of them so far. There were still in the hundreds. Take on someone of your own size, Gustav muttered as he cleaned his mouth. Zuin. His body suddenly began to lengthen, along with his silver scales and muscular arms. His horns grew very large along with his tail as well. The glowing light on his forehead also increased in size as well. The Ziafanos were stupefied once more. It looked like the so-called vermin had more tricks underneath his sleeves. Gustav reached out to the closest Ziafano with his right arm glowing yellowish. Bang! He slammed his fist onto the head of the Ziafano, causing it to get hurled thousands of feet backwards as a mark appeared on its body. Boom! An explosion from the mark sent the Ziafano hurling further backwards as it cried out in pain. Other Ziafanos didn't wait for him to approach them before bearing their talons once more upon him. Now that he was larger, it was easier for them to attack him. Bang! 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 Gustav moved as quickly as he could across the air, throwing multiple fists at the Ziafanos while also receiving the full brunt of the attack from the ones at his flank. The creatures were faster than he was, but he had no trouble striking blows due to his perception that let him predict their movements. However, he couldn't dodge all of their attacks either. The battle was becoming incredibly destructive and brutal as time passed. Boom, 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 boom. Every single Ziafano that Gustav managed to make contact with bore a small mark that exploded after some time. This caused the Ziafanos to take more damage as time passed, but Gustav was also very injured as well. Thizazeh. Thias. Gustav slashed at multiple massive, destructive, and dark purplish energy beams shot from the mouth of Ziafanos. Each of them were as large as skyscrapers, causing the air to twist and turn, but Gustav struck them with massive atomic blades. Boom, boom, boom. They couldn't all be countered, and the explosion sent destructive ripples across the air. Energy dispersal. Gustav muttered as the atomic blades vanished from his grasp, and he clasped his palms together. Thum. A red wave of energy blasted forth from his being, colliding with the explosion. Multiple floating diamond-like platforms crumbled to dust as the ripples repelled everything within a radius of more than 100,000 feet. Gustav's figure vanished and reappeared behind a Ziafano that was hurling across the air due to the blast. Grabbing hold of its neck, Gustav forcibly ripped its head from its body and flung it in the direction of another Ziafano. The creatures were very sturdy, but it was nothing compared to Gustav's natural body defense. Another Ziafano clawed Gustav's from the side, piercing a little into his shoulder, but it got stuck. Gustav reached out and grabbed the 2 other Ziafanos that had attacked from the front, which talons were lodged in his bleeding body. Arar! Gustav screamed loudly, causing sonic waves to blast forth from his mouth. Bang! The 2 Ziafanos in front of him got sent flying across the air as the sonic waves caused their organs to shatter from the inside out. Reaching back to grab the Ziafano that had clawed into his sides, Gustav held onto its beak and forcefully ripped the head of the creature open. Blood splattered across the place as Gustav realized he had already taken down about 40 of them. However, there were still a little over 70 left, and he had expended a lot of energy. I don't want to use cosmic superiority, Gustav said internally as he flew upwards while the others chased after him. It's not like you haven't used it before, the system responded in his head. On a small scale, yes, but with these creatures, they'll have to use it on a large scale, but am actively trying to avoid that, Gustav replied internally as he activated Lightning Blitz once more. Threra ahas. You can't escape from them using this bee. I know. Follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Calm. Chapter 1195 Threra ahas. You can't escape from them using this bee. I know. They're fast, although their speed is quite inconsistent. At the very least, it gives me 1 second to collect my thoughts, Gustav voiced out as he reappeared close to 1,000,000 feet away. I was going to tell you that they're not that fast. They just tag onto your energy with an ability they possess, which also lets them reappear wherever you are when you activate Lightning Blitz, the system stated. What? Why didn't you tell me? Gustav voiced with a slightly surprised tone. To Gustav, this explained why their speed was inconsistent. The Ziaphanos were still really fast, but their speed was not a match for Lightning Blitz during Gustav battles with them. If they could move that fast every time, the battle would have gone in a completely different direction. Gustav had noticed the inconsistency and chalked it up to something related with acceleration. He thought they could only do it at specific periods and not limitlessly. Now it turned out, they only tagged along with him whenever he made use of it. Knowing this information out wasn't of great use to Gustav, since he wasn't aware of any means of stopping them from following him after Lightning Blitz activation. Looks like I will have to use that. What better time to test out its effectiveness than now, Gustav voiced. As he made his decision, the 1 second he had to collect his thoughts were up. Threeris, black streaks tore through the air, and with it bore the arrival of the Ziaphanos. Gustav stood in place as they approached him with speed. Tekafib's 6th dimension has been activated. Gustav's entire face suddenly turned black, looking mushy as a weird energy permeated the air. The incoming Ziaphanos, heading in Gustav's direction, suddenly turned to strands of black lines that go sucked into the blackness on Gustav's face. This is such a convenient ability. The system voiced in Gustav's mind as close to 30 of them got into this predicament. The other Ziaphanos in the vicinity turned to the sides upon seeing what became of their kin. What has he done to our brothers? One of them yelled as he turned around, and to slash Gustav from behind. Gustav turned around at this point. The Ziaphanos gazed upon the face of darkness and got transformed into a black line that got absorbed into Gustav's face as well. Some others in the vicinity happened to witness this and gazed at Gustav with fury mixed with intrigue, trying to figure out he was doing this. However, they suffered the same fate, turning into black lines and getting absorbed into Gustav's dark face. Thrih. The darkness on Gustav's face flickered a couple of times, before disappearing. Tekafib's 6th dimension has been deactivated. Alpha Theta Nu Epsilon, he reckoned that all of them would have gotten sucked in if the ability was not limited in usage. Gustav tried to activate it again, but it had apparently gone into cooldown mode. It doesn't matter. They are intelligent species. They would have figured it out sooner or later. Partially true. Taking them by surprise was the biggest step to making the ability successful. Gustav also realized that some of them flew in different directions and hid behind some floating diamond platforms in the vicinity because they didn't understand how the ability worked. This saved about 30 of them, as they were still unaware at the time that the ability works by gaze. The moment the creatures gazed upon Gustav's face while the ability was activated, their entire being would be pulled into the 6th dimension, trapped forever, never to come out again. The best way to defend against this ability was to keep one eye shut. There was no fighting against its power the moment anyone stared at it. The others seemed to have figured out by now that the ability had been deactivated and began charging at Gustav once more while some shot out destructive dark purplish beams from their mouths. You lots never learn, Gustav voiced. We shall avenge our fallen kin. One of the Ziaphanos yelled. Intelligent but stupid, Gustav voiced as he charged forward as well. Thwirwish. What happened here? Roalpha, a new omen, overbearing-looking figure with 6 arms, 2 legs and bluish star-shaped marks all over his body voiced out. Captain Strum. Another figure looking similar but smaller, mumbled in a low tone. This figure could be seen laying in a massive ditch with weakened expression and a battered-looking body. Someone held up his head with a look of pity as other similar-looking species could be seen standing around the place. 3 others were sprawled out on the ground in different areas in this decimated-looking location. The massive craters, cracks, uprooted trees, and ditches covering a radius of thousands of feet hinted that an intense battle had occurred here. So it was an Earthling, Captain Strum states with an overbearing gaze. Captain, we tried. But he was too strong, the Draconet answered with a distressed tone. You disappoint me, Shiva. Captain Strum raised one of his legs. Bang! A massive vibration rang out as he stomped on the chest of the already battered Shiva. Blair roared. Shiva puked blood as the ground quaked heavily and caved in even more. He held onto Captain Strum's leg with a pleading and suffocating expression. Captain Pieli. Shiva tried begging. Ugh, you got blood all over me, useless. Captain Strum kicked Shiva away before emitting a small glow that disintegrated the blood on his body. I have seen the image in your head of the person that laid waste to all 4 of you. He is not weak as you have stated, but your uselessness has made us look weak. Captain Strum began to levitate after saying this. It is time to regain the 2 things you fools failed to acquire. Our pride is Draconets and the egg. His eyes squinted as he turned in a direction. Thum. His body ascended further into the air and cut across the sky with immense speed. 5 other Draconets in the vicinity ascended into the sky, following after him. Vice Captain, are you not joining them? One of the Draconets that stayed inquired. The captain is more than capable of taking care of it himself. Even the others joining won't be able to do a single thing, Vice Captain Austral replied. Truly, the captain would feel it is beneath him to employ the help of anyone else. The Draconet recalled Captain Strum's intense pride. Let's take care of the injured. The vice captain didn't seem to be as intense. She proceeded to move towards the teammate that was nearly stomped to death by Captain Strum and administered treatment. My idiot liege, you have to accept the full power of the crown. That way these vermin would be no match for you. Shut up, Darko, Falco voiced out loud. If one could witness Falco's occasional outbursts with the way he often spoke out loud to himself, they would think he wasn't sane. However, his friends would understand that he was most likely speaking to Dark Falco, who still existed within him. Falco was currently able to control his abilities better than in the past, so he had full dominance over Dark Falco. This was also the reason he had been engaging in most battles himself. Dark Falco could only take over if Falco fell unconscious. However, not everyone was aware that Falco had been fighting the battles himself lately. Falco's attitude was changing so much that during battle, it was difficult to tell that it wasn't Dark Falco throwing the punches. Within him, Dark Falco stood beside a dark throne where half of a floating crown could be spotted. You already took half of it. It won't be long before you take it all, my idiot liege, ha 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 ha. Dark Falco began laughing mischievously. I want, but even if I do, I will not become what you want, Falco stated as he arrived atop a large icy mountain. You are not very self-aware, my liege. You do not see what you are already becoming, Dark Falco stated. If I ever become something else, I trust my friends to deal with me. A smile appeared on Falco's face as he stared at a massive half-spherical barrier made of icicle-like rocks up ahead. It happened to be situated between 4 mountains, and despite being unable to see what was within, Falco was sure he had arrived at his destination. Your friends will be in danger if they ever try to deal with you, Dark Falco voiced internally. They're your friends too, so you better make sure nothing happens to them, Falco replied. Dark Falco, who was about to say something, initially paused. His legs buckled as he lowered himself and sat beside the throne with a speechless dark look. Humph. You just don't understand, Dark Falco muttered. SS. Chapter 1196. Please save me, humph. You just don't understand, Dark Falco muttered. Falco ignored Dark Falco and leapt forward. Through him, he landed right before the massive barricade made of Iro, silk that covered the entire vicinity. This is the designated point we're meant to meet Gustav in, but I can't sense anyone around, Falco voiced with a slightly confused expression. He was well aware that the barricade was Gustav's doing since he had seen him use the Iroh silk a couple of times and even covered nearly an entire city with it in the past. He just didn't understand why Gustav was not in like he was supposed to be. Maybe he's out doing something. I should just hold on in the meantime. Falco proceeded to sit in a crossed-legged position. He tapped on his storage button, which revealed holographic images of the contents within. About 25 eggs could be seen arranged within. Falco was quite satisfied with the number of eggs he had gathered himself. He was also eager for everyone to meet up since it would make it easier for them to gather more eggs together. My liege, Dark Falco yelled internally. What is it? Don't start with your whole whining again. I am not interested in incoming hostiles. Dark Falco cut Falco off before he could finish his sentence. Incoming. Dark Falco was still speaking when a massive bluish glowing spear tore through the skies. Thrara. Falco leapt to his feet instantly, but the spear, which happened to be moving at immense speed, slammed into the icy ground at that same instant. Fwyi boom. Intense shockwaves blasted across the vicinity as Gustav's Iroh silk barrier crumbled to dust along with the 4 icy mountains in the vicinity. The attack was so powerful that everything in the vicinity, except the designated machine, disintegrated. It was unknown if Falco was unscathed, but a figure with multiple limbs and a massive shadowy being towering over him could be spotted descending from the sky. Gustav held onto his Ziafano's beak, panting with his entire figure covered completely in blood. It's been a while since I've battled this hard. The torn fabric on his body due to the intense battle began to join back together just like his injuries. You just fought against beings on the level of Omegas. It is quite impressive that you managed to take care of them all, the system voiced. Gusta recalled when he struggled to cause even the slightest damage on a Omega-ranked mixed blood, and now he managed to kill over 100 of them. He had truly gotten way more powerful than he was in the past, but seeing as he still couldn't use Cohelia, he knew he still hadn't gotten to the strength level of an alpha. If this battle had occurred on Earth, it would have caused a great catastrophe, but fortunately, the 4th disc was immensely large, and whatever this dimension was, it somehow absorbed the shockwaves from their battles. His breathing soon returned to normal as his body also transformed to his usual look. Atomic disintegration has been activated. Gustav's body emitted a milky glow on the parts with blood, causing them to turn into light particles and dissipate. He currently looked like someone who didn't just finish a crazy battle. The corpse of the Ziafano in his grasp still had blood seeping out of its body from multiple areas. Might be useful later. Gustav's fingers grew longer as he stabbed his right hand into its flesh, staining his arm with blood once more. Begin extraction, Gustav commanded. Minutes later, Gustav could be seen flying across this unknown region once more while planning his next step. He had acquired 2 Vinder eggs in this unknown place, which brought Earth up to 3 eggs in possession currently. He didn't want to spend too long here due to the others approaching the designated point, so he decided to only get 2 more and leave. He wasn't sure if bringing the others here was a good idea since their speed was not a match for his, so he hadn't given that much though yet. Whoosh, Gustav increased his speed after deciding which place he was going to visit next. He had practically gone round this whole place during his battle with the Ziafanos, so he knew just how large it was. There were a lot more creatures down here than he thought, and some of them had gained awareness of his presence, but didn't seem to be interested in him. Gustav felt they wouldn't come after him unless he breached their territory first. About 30 minutes later, Gustav arrived above a misty surrounded structure. The structure looked like a temple of sorts, but had a torso statue of an unknown creature erected above it. The structure was multi-layered, but still had only a single ground floor. The statue of the creature upper body seemed quite muscular, but its head had what looked like an upside-down horn protruding from it. Gustav's perception picked up on the 17 feet tall creatures in the vicinity that looked similar to the statue above the temple-like structure. These creatures were capable of walking on 2 feet like humans, but everything else about them looked nothing human-like. They had greenish-looking armored upper body with oddly shaped variety of weapons in their grasp as they moved about the place. Gustav was still thousands of feet above their territory, but he could see them clearly and even hear the way they communicated with one another. This was another intelligent species with strength and a special ability which Gustav wasn't aware of, but he could tell that those upside-down horns protruding from their scalp wasn't ordinary. He reckoned that there were around 20,000 of them, but they happened to be weaker than the Ziaphanos. However, even with this discovery, Gustav wasn't going to underestimate them. Something happened to catch Gustav's attention upon scanning their territory with his perception, which made him activate God Eyes. God Eyes has been activated. His eyes zoomed in on the altar area of the structure, and he happened to spot an unexpected sight. "There's a participant here," Gustav muttered. "Not of her volition from the looks of things," the system voiced in response. "How do you even know it's a her?" Gustav's eyes squinted as he stared at the participant's body, which looked like an ever-outpouring source of goo. The participant body was covered in ash-gooey liquid that never stopped flowing. However, greenish glowing binds could be seen all over their body, which was in a kneeling position on the altar. "It is a female diaparonian," the system voiced once more. "How did a participant even manage to get here?" Gustav recalled nearly getting erased from existence on his way down here. The diaparonians are not as powerful as the planets that lead the Alliance, but they are not bad in terms of abilities. Yes, but none of their abilities should be able to help her get down here. Besides, if she is that powerful, how did she wind up in this situation? Gustav voiced. "Saying that like you were not almost unalived by the Ziaphanos a while ago. I won that fight. Barely." Gustav decided to ignore the system taunts and stared at the Vinder egg right in front of the participant who had become a captive. Maybe she was also trying to steal their Vinder egg and got caught. Gustav felt she was also doing the same thing as he was. Anyways, it's time to get the egg. Since she's so powerful, she should be able to save herself, right? Just as Gustav was about to deactivate God Eyes, the head area of the diaparonian turned and two snake-like creatures bore out of the parts where her eyes were supposed to be located. These eyes suddenly stared directly into Gustav's, causing him to pause in place. "Please help me." A high-pitched feminine voice rang in his mind. "What the hell?" Gustav voiced. "Please save me." The voice, which was undoubted that of the diaparonian, rang in his mind once more. "You are aware of their abilities, and you still fell into one of it. I would be shaking my head if I had one." "Oh, wait." The instant the system finished speaking, it appeared before Gustav in holographic format. Her eyes held a look of ridicule as she shook her head repeatedly like a disappointed human. "Fuck you." At this point, Gustav couldn't count the number of times the system had made him cuss. The diaparonian had made use of an ability that trapped anything in place the moment she stared at it, making that thing or person completely unmovable. Gustav was aware of this ability since he had made his research on the aliens the Earth would be going up against during ISOP, but he didn't think the diaparonian would be able to activate it from such distance. He wasn't even aware that she was conscious or would be able to see through the structure and discover his existence. It took him completely by surprise. 62C5B29427008FD12A9, add 975E, follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Com. Chapter 1197. He wasn't even aware that she was conscious or would be able to see through the structure and discover his existence. It took him completely by surprise. "Stop whatever it is you're doing and let me go," Gustav spoke in his mind. "Please save me. I'll free you if you promise to save me," the diaparonian voiced. "Let me go now while you still have the chance. You can get yourself out of whatever pickle you got yourself into." "It is none of my business," Gustav replied. "Please save me. They will turn me into a sacrifice. Please save me. Save me. Save me. Save me. Save me. Save me. Save me." Her voice kept ringing in Gustav's head, causing him headache. His face squeezed up with annoyance. "Enough!" Gustav yelled as a small pink and reddish glow emitted from his being. Fisk. He was instantly freed from the hold of the diaparonian. "You just ruined your chances of getting saved. Do it yourself," Gustav stated before stamping an invisibility button on his forehead. Cognitive concealment has been activated. He tapped the button on his forehead after activating cognitive concealment, causing his entire body to disappear as he turned invisible. "Are you truly not going to save her?" the system inquired. "Why should I?" Gustav said internally before swooping downwards. Don't be reckless like the last time, the system voiced. No worries, this time there isn't a crazy internal structure with unexpected gravitational laws. Gustav was relieved that it seemed easier than the last time. Upon getting close to the ground, he hovered slightly over it, flying forward into the massive temple. More statues bearing semblance to that of the one above could be seen placed in different parts of the temple interior. Although smaller in size, they seemed to be arranged in a way meant to beautify the temple. However, some of these statues were in compromising positions, some with weapons jarring through their head or chest. Real internal organs planted in different corners as well. Gustav could easily tell. Weird rocks that Gustav had never seen before could also be spotted, which made him wonder how their sense of beautification worked. Any normal person that stumbled into this temple would be scared out of their wits instead of standing there and praising the design. Gustav immediately arrived before the altar area after avoiding the multiple creatures moving about the place. The system had once again revealed the name of this species to Gustav, but he wasn't interested in that right now. He just wanted to get the Viander egg and move out of this territory as soon as possible. I'll alert these creatures about your existence if you don't help me right now. He suddenly heard the voice of the Diaperonian in his mind the instant he reached out to touch the Viander egg. She looked even more slimy and gooey in closer proximity. Gustav only took a glance at her and the binds surrounding her figure. No, they'll be out of here before they can even do anything, Gustav responded while grabbing the Viander egg. Please, I'll owe you one. I'm a princess, I'll give something back in return. Anything you want, the Diaperonian participant begged. Why can't you just slither your way out of that thing? You're practically liquid, Gustav questioned. The binds stop me from dematerializing, she voiced. I promise to do anything. Please just free me, she added. Gustav paused at this point. Anything? He questioned internally. Yes, anything. You have my word, she voiced. You have limited time before they discover your presence, the system reminded. We have a deal, Gustav said internally before letting go of the Viander egg. Didn't you say you weren't going to help her? The system wanted to facepalm at this point. Gustav ignored the system and stared at the invisible lines surrounding the Diaperonian who was still bound. He had seen the lines around her when he activated God Eyes initially, and assumed it was some kind of trigger, but didn't understand why they didn't put it around the egg. The lines are ritualistic design which would have sucked out her life force upon activation, the system stated. Looks like it's not a trigger like I thought. Explains why they didn't put it around the egg. Are they really that confident that no one would be able to get it? Gustav wondered internally. It would still cause a trigger if you tried to save her though, the system voiced. Yeah, they'll just disintegrate it then, Gustav decided while activating atomic manipulation. Atomic manipulation has been activated. He tapped his right feet on the altar, and a milky glowing line spread from his feet to the lines surrounding the Diaperonian. A circular decline was instantly formed on the altar. The ritualistic lines had completely disappeared. However, the creatures in the vicinity had been alerted. Gustav was super quick to have already grabbed the egg and the Diaperonian before flying upwards. Bang! He broke through the roof of the temple-like platform instantly. However, Fwyi. The moment he ascended about 50 feet above the ground, the Diaperonian suddenly dematerialized despite the binds surrounding her body. The occurrence took Gustav by mistake, and before he knew it, she was wrapped around his right arm and extending further to the rest of his body. Thai. Multiple outbursts of greenish energy surrounded the entire vicinity at once, causing Gustav to only see a world of green before he began falling to the ground. What the hell is this? Gustav voiced as a barrier suddenly appeared around him while he fell to his knees. Hi. The Diaperonian began laughing hysterically in his mind, while Gustav struggled to break free, but he couldn't get off his knees. Step, 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 step. Multiple of the green armored creatures with weapons stepped towards the barrier with cold looks. You fell into our trap-thieving scum. One of the Zergs stated as he arrived before the barrier. He happened to be around 20 feet tall with a massive club-like weapon in his grasp. What is this? Cosmic superiority? Not quite, it feels different, Gustav questioned internally with his forehead creasing. His body wasn't listening to his commands, and this wasn't like the hold the Diaperonian had on his body earlier. That power made him unable to move, but this power was compelling him to kneel. Looking upwards, Gustav could see the upside-down horn on the scalp of the Zerg glowing a bright green light. However, it wasn't just him. Other Zergs in the vicinity had the same green glow, and it seemed to have set up the barrier surrounding Gustav. The Diaperonian goose slid down from his arm and moved across the ground towards the largest Zerg. "Good job, Finna," the Zerg stated as the ashy slime arrived before him before getting sucked into the upside-down horn on his forehead. A participant working with one of the creatures down here? This didn't make any sense to Gustav. The binds which were supposed to stop her from dematerializing seemed to have been a fluke, and she could have dematerialized any time she wanted. Gustav had been successfully fooled. These creatures were truly intelligent, but a lot still wasn't adding up. "I found Finna and made her my slave," the 20 feet tall Zerg began stating upon seeing the look of confusion on Gustav's face. After saying a couple of things, Gustav now understood everything. The Zergs were aware that someone was going to try and steal their Viander egg, and from the looks of things he wasn't the first. The power of the chief of the Zerg's upside-down horn lets him bring back to life someone and make them his slave. He apparently found the corpse of Finna, a Diaperonian participant somewhere unknown, and brought her back to life as his slave. Being her master, he says 2 reasons, bad matchup, and that's their captain, Gustav replied. "Oh," Timmy voiced. "Will you be going then?" "Nah, I have a better matchup." "Elevra, you're up," Gustav announced. Elevra's face turned focused as she heard this. "How far do I have to go?" She wanted to know if it was necessary to go all out. Gustav had told everyone initially that they wouldn't be displaying all of their strength from the start, but eventually they would go all out. "Just make sure you get to the 9th river," Gustav instructed. Elevra nodded and began heading forward. The grounds destroyed initially had been fixed and new rivers were now positioned there. As Elevra arrived before the first river, the Anusa relic appeared before her, and she reached out to grab it. Roelfidialpha Inu Oma a few moments later, she was holding onto a massive spear with a fiery purplish flame at its tip. Elevra stared at her weapon with a look of satisfaction before pointing it at the river before her. Her entire figure was soon emitting a bright purplish glow as the ground began to quake. On the other side, Captain Shumi held on to what looked like a massive cannon. It was 4 times her size, yet she held it above her like it was nothing while pouring energy into it. A couple of moments later, they both took action. Boom! A shot was released from the cannon, which flew into the river ahead and exploded with intensity. Meanwhile, Elevra, who had levitated to almost 100 feet height, flung the spear in her grasp downwards. Flyei, a purplish streak cut through the air as it bore through the river instantly, emitting a shockwave that caused the entire river to be emptied. Both opponents went through the 1st to 6th river, performing the same actions and clearing it out. Her strength should be reaching its limits after this river, Captain Shumi thought as she gave it her all and cleared the 7th river as well. The purplish aura surrounding Elevra climbed as she flung down her spear from the air once more. Bang! The entire river was emptied once again effortlessly as cracks spread across the floor of the river. "Teach, there is no way she's as calm as she looks." Captain Shumi peeked at Elevra from her end below. They were currently at the 8th river now, which was the limit for a lot of participants. "If I manage to clear this, it should be the end for her," she whispered while pouring energy into her cannon. Diddy. Weird popping sounds rang out as the projectile within the cannon kept growing in energy until she finally fired it. Thus, it cut through the surface of the gigantic river, which was well over 1,000,000 feet in length, before falling into it. Boom! A loud explosion rang out as huge amount of waves rose into the air, displaying the bottom of the river as the blast kept spreading. Unfortunately, it wasn't powerful enough to split more than a quarter of the river before dying out. The gravitational force is so strong that it causing the power of any blast to be reduced to 1/3 of its output. She had a grudging look as she came to this realization. "I just need to amp it up then," she said with determination while infusing a large amount of energy into her cannon once more. Up above, Elevra was also gathering energy as the purplish aura surrounding her continued to climb. Her hetai was still wrapped around her forehead, and there didn't seem to be a need for her to reveal it. The sky had begun to change color in her position due to the purplish aura she emitted, but she knew it still wasn't enough. On the ground, Captain Shumi finally fired her cannon once more. A rocking explosion rang out, clearing 3/4 of the river in front of her, but it still wasn't enough to clear all. At this point, she stared at the river before her with a look of disbelief, since she was aware of how much power she had just used. That other Earthling must be immensely powerful, she recalled. However, she wasn't ready to give up as she began charging her cannon again for the third and final try. At this same instant, Elevra held up her spear and arched her arm back to the limit with a serious expression. Fwaiwiyayi, she flung her spear downwards with intensity, causing shockwaves to spread from her location even before the spear hit the water. The sky cleared out and the river surface blasted open while the spear was still 100 feet away from making contact with its surface. Boom! In a split second, the spear had made contact with the bottom of the river and a powerful force spread forth from it, pushing the water body out of its 1,000,000 feet whole radius. Cheers, 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 cheers were heard from the spectators' area as she cleared it in one attack once more. Captain Shumi instantly lost morale as she witnessed this and released her shot impromptu. As expected, it didn't manage to clear the 8 river, leaving Elevra the winner. Planet Earth 2-0 Planet Gundabalt. The spectators' areas focusing on Earth and Gundabal's face-off erupted in cheers and groans of satisfaction as well as disappointment. They both headed back to their respective groups. Elevra and the Offs jubilated after their second win while a cloud of gloom was casted on the Gundabalt's area. We can still win this. They are using all their powerful representatives from the start. Meanwhile, we still have Tyvan, Shui and the others, Captain Shumi voiced. Captain Shumi is right. WS can still win. Some of them agreed as they tried not to lose hope. Gustav proceeded to send Timi next as he wanted, and there was no disappointment. Timi cleared 7 rivers while his opponent did not manage to successfully clear the 7th. The Earth had been hailed to have one of the most powerful species in the universe, but they hadn't expected to lose 3 bouts in a row without winning a single one. It was humiliating. Captain Shumi wasn't happy with the current turn of events, but she made sure to keep to her strategy and kept sending out the weaker teammates from her side first. Time went by very quickly, and before Ave1 knew it, both planets had completed 7 bouts. So far, Ildris, Glade, Vin, and Yonda had participated and none of them lost. Planet Earth 7-0 Planet Gundabalt. At Planet Gundabalt's side, Captain Shumi turned to one of her teammates who happened to be the smallest in their midst. He was about 2 feet tall with a glowing green root-like hair that floated up. Tyvan, it's time for us to make a comeback. Head out there and do the needful, she said to him. He didn't say a single word in response and just began to head forward. This will be a tough one. Indrik, you're up, Gustav voiced. Indrik, who had been silent all this time behind, finally walked forward. I see what you're talking about. He's strong, Indrik stated as he arrived before Gustav. Yes, the type of weapon you two get actually matters, Gustav voiced. Have faith in me, big brother. I will take care of this, Indrik reassured before he began stepping forward with a solemn expression. He has become quite reliable, Ildris voiced from the side. Gustav remained silent, but deep down he admitted to what Ildris had just said. Indrik soon arrived before the river, and the Anusa relic appeared before him. What type of weapon do you want? His forehead beeped with a greenish glow as Husarius' voice rang in his mind. You can manipulate that? Indrik questioned internally. Yes, just tell me the weapon you are interested in, Husarius inquired once more. I just want something that doesn't hinder my telekinetic abilities, Indrik replied while reaching out to grab the relic. Ironing in the next few moments, a 4-feet-long katana with bluish glowing blade appeared in his grasp. This is good. Now I have no worries, Indrik voiced as he raised the katana. Zian, his irises turned sky blue as he gathered telekinetic energy. On the other side, Tyvan held on to what looked like a metallic club. The club began to extend in length as he floated into the air. It became so long, it extended beyond the first river. Dashwo, is that even allowed? Alpha D Alpha Theta Nu Epsilon bang. Swinging the massive metallic club downwards, it instantly split a couple of rivers as it dropped onto them. Meanwhile, Indrik also swung his katana forward at the same instant. Telekinetic split, universal separation, he muttered as a wave of energy was released from the blade of the katana. Chapter 1198. Right before their very eyes, which was filled with uttermost bewilderment, Gustav stood to his feet, no longer hindered by their abilities. What? How are you doing this, thieving scum? The chief of the Zergs voiced. It's just a Yarky dupe, Gustav muttered as he stepped forward and grabbed the Viander egg. Gustav barely activated cosmic superiority since he didn't want to bring any attention to himself. Exuding a little bit of its energy was enough to break out of the hold of the Zerg's power. Dash, Yarky? Dash, that creature is dangerous, Chief. Dash, what is this? The Zergs were already astonished and wary upon witnessing Gustav's feat, but in the next instant, he suddenly disappeared from sight. Bang! A loud crash assaulted their ears as the barrier blasted to smithereens. The Zergs were unable to process things very quickly despite their powerful ability. Their eyes widened when they spotted Gustav in the sky with their chief in his grasp, powerless. The club-like weapon in his grasp had fallen to the ground as well. Chief! They yelled with looks of horror as they began throwing weapons upwards. LTS, time to send you to the afterlife. A smirk appeared on Gustav's face as his frame cut across the air with intense speed. Despite his size, the chief of the Zergs struggled powerlessly with Gustav's right hand holding tightly onto his throat. Please spare me. You can have the egg, the chief pleaded after seeing their immense difference in strength. I already have the egg, you don't strike a good bargain, Gustav stated as his fingers tightened around the neck of the chief, which was very small in comparison to his size. Erferg, I have a better bargain PL. Ease, spree M. The chief of the Zergs pleaded. I don't want to hear it. Greed got me into this situation. Your power will be enough compensation, Gustav replied as he prepared to extract the chief's ability. MP, I have a MAP. I see in HELPYOU. GTMOREEGGS, the chief kept struggling to speak. He says he has a map, the system voiced. I already know my way around, Gustav replied. You do, but you keep getting into these situations that delay you. Didn't you say you wanted to get out of here as soon as possible? The system inquired. Gustav thought about it for a second. He was unaware of the abilities of the creatures here, so he kept getting into unfavorable situations. However, if a native of this part of the fourth disc helped him, things would become easier and he wouldn't get delayed by falling into unexpected situations again. I guess you're right, but I really like their abilities though. Gustav reluctantly released his tight grip on the chief's throat. You're not just going to give me a map, you will also stake the eggs for me, Gustav stated while still holding the chief up. I agree, but can my savior release our eggs since we will be helping you steal more? The chief inquired. You don't get to make demands besides. What do you guys even need them for? Gustav questioned. Please, savior. You might as well just slaughter us now if you still wish to take our egg, the chief pleaded. Why is the Viander egg so important to the creatures down here? Gustav wondered internally with a slightly raised left brow. Who knows? The system answered like it was unaware too. Very well then, Gustav voiced while turning around. FYI, he sped across the air once more and arrived above the territory of the Zergs who were still prancing around in despair. Gustav let go of the chief who fell from the aid and landed before his kin. Chief! The Zergs yelled in joy. Now listen up. Gustav floated a few feet above the ground with a menacing gaze, causing the Zergs to shudder. They meekly fell to their knees and listened as Gustav made demands on what he wanted. The creatures would do anything to make sure their eggs were not taken from them, so they accepted Gustav's demand. They couldn't even disobey, even if they wanted to, since their chief already agreed. With the partnership, the Zergs informed Gustav of this part of the fourth disc properly. Apparently, it was a kind of dimension between the fourth and fifth disc, but they were still a part of planet Ozius. However, they weren't completely recognized by the major species existing on the surface of the disks. The Osis. They were seen as less important and inferior, and the eggs happened to be what helped them evolve and grow as a species. Roalpha Dialpha Inuamd it was normal for a planet to have multiple species, especially one as massive as this. However, he didn't understand why the Osis choose not to acknowledge the existences of the ones here. As he stayed longer, he realized the Zergs were more peaceful than they looked on the surface. Despite the chief's special ability to revive the dead with that upside-down horn of his and turn them to his slave, he didn't think of conquering more territories. This ability could change the tide of battles if he wanted to conquer even the surface, but the chief only wanted to protect his people. This is the one we will be infiltrating second, the Bootfog territory. They have warping abilities and tend to set a lot of traps, but I can get you the egg without them ever knowing it. The chief spoke to Gustav after their first haul. They had already managed to get one Vinder egg in the last hour. It was so easy to get into the territory due to the help of the chief and get the egg out after replacing it with a dummy. This time Gustav didn't get into any scuffle. It was almost too easy that he thought something was wrong. So you know their leader? Gustav questioned. We have been acquainted in the past, yes, the chief answered. So you're willing to double-cross this acquaintance of yours? Gustav inquired once more. To save my people, with no question, I would. The chief answered unhesitatingly. All right then, let's go, Gustav voiced before getting off the altar within the temple. Thinhing. Gustav held his right eye as he felt a small thump. Savior, is anything the matter? The chief questioned with concern while staring down on Gustav due to his large size. Nothing, let's move. Gustav lowered his arm before stepping forward. Kur. Falco coughed out spurts of blood as he knelt in the middle of a massive crater. The frost in the surrounding had completely vaporized, leaving a completely decimated environment. Falco looked up with an unyielding expression as a figure descended from above. Bang! He landed directly on Falco, who was struggling to get up. The entire vicinity quaked intensely as the figure with 6 arms and blue starred patterns got off Falco back, which had made a loud crack upon collision. Oops, I didn't mean to, Earthling. Captain Strum squatted before Falco and grabbed his hair with one of his left hands. He slowly pulled his head up a little, which had blood smeared across. I applaud you for surviving my first attack. You are indeed strong, but you know, it's only right for me to treat you the same way you did my subordinates. They'll get the egg back after having a little fun with you. A confident and prideful grin appeared on his face. Don't die just yet, Captain Strum voiced before pulling Falco completely off the ground and smashing his face into the wall of the crater. Bang, 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 bang. Captain Strum blurred across the vicinity in a zigzag format as he repeatedly smashed Falco's face into the walls and ground, causing a quakes. Come on, don't make this boring for me. He raised Falco's entire body with 2 of his arms and began punching his gut with the rest of his 4 arms. Dash, should we stop him? Dash, do you want to die? Captain Strum would rip you to pieces. Dash, wouldn't the Earthling die if this continues, though? Dash, I think there's a penalty for that, but we can't do anything but watch right now. Above THS crater, 5 figures who also had multiple limbs watched with worried expressions and discussed their concerns amongst one another. Bang, 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 bang. Hundreds of punches slammed into Falco's gut at very fast pace, causing him to spit out more blood, which touched Captain Strum's face. Oh, that's gross. You got blood all over me. Captain Strum let go of Falco at this point, who fell to his face with a battered body. Disgusting, Captain Strum stated before swinging his left foot forward. Bang! His foot collided with Falco's face, sending him flying out of the crater. Bang! 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 Falco slammed into the ground and repeatedly ricocheted off it, sweeping across the ground for hundreds of feet. My liege, wake up. Wake up, or I'm taking over. Wake up. Chapter 11, 99 Disappear. Falco slammed into the ground and repeatedly ricocheted off it, sweeping across the ground for hundreds of feet. My liege, wake up. Wake up, or I'm taking over. Wake up. Dark Falco kept yelling internally as Falco's body swept across the ground, creating long ridges. Ugh, hi. Falco groaned as his body came to a stop after a while. He felt extremely sore all over and lightheaded. Blared. He vomited out another mouthful of blood as his visibility slowly returned to normal. My liege, you are not a match for him as you are now. Accept the full power of the crow. Not mtch, huh? We shall see about that. Falco interrupted with a stubborn look while trying to pick himself up once more. Thwirwhoosh. Captain Strum's figure flew out of the crater, which happened to be hundreds of feet ahead, with intense speed in Falco's direction. His arms were arched back as he prepared to launch another flurry of fists on Falco's body. Immense dark energy suddenly radiated from Falco's being before Captain Strum could get to him. Thrara. Falco's left arm, which was twisted 180 degrees right due to the damage he took from the beating earlier, spun back to its usual angle as he leapt into the air to receive Captain Strum. A large fist conjured from dark energy formed as Falco swung his initially broken arm forward to meet with the multiple fist headed in his direction. Boom! Shockwaves blasted in every direction as the massive dark fist collided with Captain Strum's multiple fists, causing both figures to instantly separate in midair. Falco landed on his feet and slid tens of feet backwards, just like Captain Strum, who has a little expression of excitement on his face. Now that's more like it, Earthling, he stated while two of his arms rested on his hips, while another one smoothed his hair backwards, and one pointed at Falco. Don't make this boring for me, he added. You only held the upper hand for a little, because your attack took me by surprise. Don't get too full of yourself. Falco wiped the blood off his mouth with his sleeves. Big talk for a person that I don't need my encore to defeat, Captain Strum stated with a confident grin planted on his face. Falco recalled that what the Draconids called encores was that shadowy figure that would be projected behind them, which was usually very powerful. However, he felt things might have been easier if Captain Strum made use of it, considering that he was aware that the encores was also their weakness, as well as it was their strength. The aura of darkness covering Falco's entire being grew in size as the mark on his forehead enlarged as well. To wash. They both charged forward without saying any more words at this point, as Captain Strum didn't seem to have gotten enough out of the beating he gave Falco earlier. Multiple dark arms phased out of the dark aura covering Falco's being as he clashed repeatedly with Captain Strum. Bang, 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 bang. They both threw out thousands of punches in seconds, making it look like a flurry of blurry arms swinging forward repeatedly. Shockwaves wrecked the entire vicinity, even more as these two continued to exchange fists in mid-air, unyielding to the other. Dash, he managed to hold his own against the captain. Dash, that Earthling is truly impressive. Dash, we can't even interfere or the captain would face us and beat us to a pulp. Dash, this won't last for long though. Dash, the Earthling might be able to hold his own now, but the moment the captain stops holding back, that would be the end. The 5 Draconids in the sky watched the battle unfold with interested expressions and speculations. It looked like the battle was still in stalemate even after a few minutes had gone by, but Falco was not interested in letting things stay this way. He had conjured more than 17 dark arms to combat Captain Strum's 6 arms, yet the captain was able to fend off the attacks from every single one of them by swinging faster each time there was a new dark arm. I need to incapacitate him, Falco thought as dark energy spread further from his being, encapsulating Captain Strum's figure within. Zitzian. In the next instant, a radius of more than 1,000 feet had been covered in darkness. All Captain Strum could see was darkness as every ounce of light completely got snuffed out. Thrara. Thrara. Captain Strum suddenly found his entire figure wrapped by massive dark arms shooting from the ground behind him. Fwyi. Falco dashed forward at this point with the other dark arms extending from his being, suddenly grabbing Captain Strum's 6 arms to trap him in place. Falco, who had arched his right arm back to the limit, hurled a punch forward at Captain Strum's gut the instant he arrived before him. Bang! Captain Strum's figure catapulted across the air with intensity, spiraling for several hundred feet before slamming into the ground far ahead. Fwash! Falco charged forward once more, as multiple arms shot out of the ground in this vicinity of darkness, trying to trap Captain Strum in place once more. Bang! 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 Captain Strum swiftly threw fists across the place, hitting the dark arms away, but the instant he fended them off, Falco arrived before him. Bam! Fists were exchanged once more, and before Captain Strum could fend them off completely, hundreds of dark arms had held onto his 6 arms, once more trapping him in place. Bang! 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 This time, Falco didn't let him off with a single punch. Bang! 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 Falco's face squeezed up in anger as he repeatedly punched Captain Strum across the air, leaving him no chance to counter or land before driving fists into his gut. TCH, such humiliation. I need to find a way out of this dark domain, Captain Strum thought as he received a flurry of fists. Bang! 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 Conjuring another massive dark fist, Falco threw an uppercut at Strum, sending him hurling upwards. As his figure ascended for hundreds of feet, his figure escaped the dark area Falco had set up for an instant. Falco charged upwards instantly, but Captain Strum was quick enough to further fly upwards, escaping the dark domain. I need to get him back in, Falco thought as he flew after Captain Strum. Such nuisance, Captain Strum voiced with a frustrated tone as a massive shadowy figure appeared behind him. Disappear, he voiced as the shadowy figure raised his arm with a massive glowing bluish spear appeared in his grasp. Falco's eyes slightly widened as he recognized the massive spear, but it was too late. Fwyi. The spear was flung down, instantly cutting through the air with intensity and bearing a tremendous pressure as a massive line could be spotted in the sky. Boom! Falco's entire being shot downwards as the spear crashed him into the ground beneath, sending bluish destructive waves across the vicinity. The darkness in the vicinity instantly disintegrated into light particles as the bluish blast leveled the surroundings. Dash, looks like that was all the captain needed to do. Dash, there's no way that Earthling survived now since it was a direct hit. Dash, now the captain will get a strike. Sigh. The Draconites shook their heads with looks of pity as it seemed like any attack from Captain Strum's Encore was absolute. Are you guys going to need any help protecting yourselves, though? Within the temple-like structure, Gustav held onto another Viander egg with a look of satisfaction on his face. We will be fine, Savior, the chief of the Zergs stated. You know, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist for the Bootfogs to figure out that you're responsible if they ever find out that the egg with them right now is a fake, Gustav voiced out. What is a rocket scientist? The chief of the Zergs questioned with a look of confoundment. Never mind. It's an Earth term, Gustav replied. The chief still had a look of intrigue, but Gustav wasn't going to explain it no matter how much he asked. Say, Chief, are you the only one that can use that revival power? Gustav inquired. Indeed, I am the only Zerg on that level of power, but another could achieve it maybe in the next 50 to 200 years, the chief of the Zergs responded. Gustav figured it was a thing of cultivation and stared at the other Zergs in the vicinity. So it's not entirely impossible then, Gustav thought. Also, I cannot revive a person that has been a corpse for longer than 5 minutes, the chief added. Then the Diaperonian girl was only a fresh corpse when you found her, Gustav voiced. Yes, I don't know where she came from. I just found her corpse nearby and used my power to turn her into my slave. I didn't even know that it would work, the captain of the Zergs answered. 62C5B29-42708FD12A9, add 975E, follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. Com. Chapter 1200, Nuff said, by any chance do you have convict Zergs that are no longer trusted by you and your fellow Zergs? Gustav wasn't really interested in how the Diaperonian candidate got here anymore. Yes, we have those who stole, the chief responded. Anyone with more grave offenses besides stealing? Like killing or something? Gustav inquired. The chief of the Zergs had a slightly downcast look as he replied. There is one. The chief of the Zergs had a slightly downcast look as he replied. There is one. Good. Take me to them. Gustav got to his feet after saying. Minutes later, Gustav stared at the system notification before him. Zerg ability extraction complete. The massive Zerg bound with glowing tiles before him fell to his back powerless after Gustav let go of his neck. This concludes our partnership, Gustav said to the chief before leaping into the air. Forhush, his figure disappeared into the distance, while the Zerg whose powers had just been stolen remained in place with a look of despair. There is trouble. I'm sure you already sensed it, the system said to Gustav as he began ascending at very quick speed. I did, Gustav replied as he touched his right eye which thumped rhythmically. Alpha D Alpha Theta Nu Epsilon Gustav immediately activated God Eyes and went on to connect to life signs. Captain Strum gazed downwards with a condescending expression as he spotted a human figure twitching repeatedly on the decimated ground that had leveled by hundreds of feet. The Earthling survived the Captain Time's spear, few lucky, but he is in no state to battle. I didn't expect him to last this long. The Draconites watched from afar as Captain Strum descended while Falco's body twitched repeatedly below as he was in an unconscious state. Falco had lost his arms along with his entire left shoulder, leaving only a small part of his chest intact. His eyelids fluttered from time to time as it seemed like he is struggling to regain consciousness. My liege. My idiot liege. Wake up. Dark Falco kept yelling within but to no avail. This is what happens when you try to be difficult. Captain Strum landed before Falco's battered body. A mere earthling subordinate like you managed to make me use my encore twice. Captain Strum had a look of anguish as he grabbed Falco's head and lifted him off the ground with a single hand. Such humiliation, bang. He threw a fist at Falco's gut. You cannot shame me without consequences, bang. I shall not tolerate humiliation to my great planet. Bang. How do you like that now, Earthling? Bang. Did you think you were strong? Bang. Did you think you would win? Bang. That you would even harbor such thoughts, bang. Makes bang. You bang. Worthy bang. Of bang. Great bang. Punishment bang. 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 Blood flowed down Falco's body as he soon got drenched due to the intense beatings. From the Earth spectators area, they watched the happenings with looks of anguish as a lot of them voiced their dissatisfaction. Isn't that supposed to be illegal? Why does he keep hitting him? Does he intend to kill an Earth representative? Where are the others? Where is Officer Crimson? Miss Amy sat in place with keen eyes focused on the multiple screens above the arena area. Gustav isn't on any of them, is he? Grand Commander Cheyenne questioned. Roalpha Dialpha Inuam, no he is not, Miss Amy replied. Wherever he is must be distant from there. It looks like the Falco kid is on his own, she added. This is not good. We can't lose a mixed blood with such potential. Grand Commander Cheyenne had a disturbed expression as he spoke. As much as they would have loved to intervene, it would cause Earth to get disqualified if they did so. The only thing Earth spectators could do right now was watch, and it was getting even more disturbing by the second. We should really stop the captain before he kills him. It will be a problem if the Earthling dies because this will not be tagged as accidental. Yes, we will be penalized. Which one of us is going down there? There was a bit of silence after the last Draconet raised the question. They stared at each other for a bit and began pointing at one another. Bang, bang, bang. At this point, Falco's body had stopped twitching as he turned completely unconscious. His ribs had been smashed in and his body was in an unrecognizable state. You will. Captain Strum stretched back 4 of his arms as he prepared to drive fists into Falco's body again. Regret ever. A loud rocket blazing sound suddenly reverberated across the air as a golden and metallic humanoid-looking figure swooped in from the right. Thwas, the figure snatched Falco's battered body out of Captain Strum's arms before he could deliver the fists. Captain Strum's face showed confusion and annoyance as he turned to stare in the direction the figure disappeared into. Thousands of feet towards the east, the humanoid golden figure with a circular-shaped translucent stone for a head stood atop a slightly exalted but flattened ice surface. This was actually a frost mountain that had gotten flattened due to the battle in the vicinity. The figure with the translucent head had a bright glowing fluorescent light the size of 2 fists within it. It slowly let Falco's body down and materialized a glowing pill which it proceeded to put into his mouth. Tuhush, hey, who the hell do you think you are to take my prey away? Captain Strum suddenly appeared behind the golden metallic, looking figure effortlessly with his arms throwing punches forward. The fluorescent glow within the circular-shaped, translucent head brightened intensely at this moment. Thry. The entire terrain suddenly expanded, causing the golden figure and Falco to get separated from Captain Strum. They didn't even need to move as all his punches missed their target upon the expansion of the terrain. They were suddenly thousands of feet apart again. Captain Strum had a conflicted expression as he stared forward. What sort of power is this? It isn't teleportation. He charged forward to attack the figure once more, and the same situation occurred. He was unable to touch the golden figure no matter how much he tried to. The environment wasn't the only thing shifting and changing. His attacks were transforming as well, and he couldn't understand how this golden figure was doing this. Captain Strum couldn't recognize this species and knew it wasn't an earthling. You are not a participant, are you? He soon realized that this might be why this golden figure hadn't even tried countering his attack and only evaded. However, if this golden figure wasn't an ISOP participant, then what was it? Minutes ago, SSHHHH. Gustav slightly opened his mouth, but could only hiss in rage as he witnessed what was happening on the surface through God eyes. Welp, you would have prevented this if you had gotten back up there earlier, the system stated. SJ, take care of Falco till I get back. Gustav could see the sacred jewel floating in place beside the designated machine without any sight of the Iro silk he built around. Don't touch that guy. He's mine. Gustav stared directly at Strum, who was still beating Falco up. The sacred jewel communicated to Gustav through a telepathic link, so it already replied Gustav and began transforming. It took the form of a golden but humanoid-looking being about 12 feet tall, with its glowing translucent body taking the form of a head. Gustav deactivated God Eyes at this point and stared up. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Threrahas. Gustav's being ascended with immense speed as he transformed into a lightning streak that disappeared from this dimension. Fight back, you low-life thing. Captain Strum was getting even more frustrated as time passed. He even found himself throwing fists at a hill at one point and couldn't understand just what sort of ability SJ was making use of. My master said he wants to have the pleasure of dealing with you himself. A projection of light appeared above SJ, displaying words that only the Draconites would understand. Your master? Who is that? Internally, Captain Strum was a little disturbed that such a creature had a master. Behind you, huh? Captain Strum turned around with a look of surprise, and what he witnessed stunned him. A brewing ice storm had covered the entire vicinity behind. It looked like the ground and sky had ripped open and blasted into little pieces that caused the ice storm. This was due to something that was traveling at incredible speed and causing destruction to the environment due to ripples spreading from it. On closer look, it was a silhouette. What is? Before Captain Strum could even dissect the situation, the silhouette had arrived before him with glowing crimson eyes, bearing down a punch that parted the sky. Boom. A fist packing intensive destructive force on a subatomic level slammed into Captain Strum's chest, triggering a shockwave. Thum. It seemed like gravitational force had come to a reversal as every solid particle within a 10-mile radius got crushed into little pieces that asyneted into the sky. Chapter 1201. It seemed like gravitational force had come to a reversal as every solid particle within a 10-mile radius got crushed into little pieces that asyneted into the sky. The Draconites watching from above also got blasted backwards by the immense energy from the attack despite being high up. They only managed to stabilize themselves after the turmoil calmed a bit. Dash, who in the name of the gods is that? Dash the captain. Their faces were still filled with astonishment as they stared downwards. The destruction wasn't a simple crater this time. This entire part of the fourth disk had completely leveled and crumbled to dust that drifted off into space. Dash, what in the world? The skies and space was usually unclear from the fourth disk, so they hadn't seen a single piece of outer space since they arrived here. However, at this moment space was more than visible. They could also see the large silver star that acted as a sun to planet Osius from this point. Fortunately or unfortunately, this didn't last long as the breach in the fourth disk began repairing itself, building new frosty ground to cover up the hole. Far ahead of where the destruction had occurred, a two-limbed, slightly charred body that looked like it had been reduced to less than half of its original state, laid in a ditch. Gustav floated above the destruction he had created with his fist emitting smoke and his expression displaying silent rage. He turned slightly to stare upwards. Dash, it is the captain of the Earthlings. Dash, he can see us? Dash, that look is threatening us not to interfere. Dash, he is more powerful than we thought. We should inform Vice Captain. Dash, the captain can handle himself, but just in case more Earthlings arrive, we have to let the Vice Captain know of the current situation. The Draconites didn't doubt that Gustav had just glared at them with a warning look despite their distance. This was Gustav trying to say he wouldn't engage unless they tried to mess around like their captain, and if so, they would end up in the same state. Gustav turned to the east and flew forward. Whoosh! The sacred jewel was quick enough to act in accordance with Gustav by moving Falco out of the area of concentration of his attack. Gustav arrived before SJ and squatted in front of Falco's body. He had began to slowly heal, but his face was still pale as well as the rest of what was left of his body. SJ's surface made a little blinking glow, communicating with Gustav that Falco would be fine. Don't use too much of that power. Remember what happened the last time? Gustav warned SJ, who lowered his head in response. The power Gustav was referring to happened to be reality warping. The sacred jewel had made use of this initially when saving Falco from Captain Strum. Apparently an accident had happened in the past when SJ continuously used reality warping, so Gustav cautioned it against continuous use. Why are they still there? Gustav could still sense the presence of the Draconites above. Knowing how prideful the Draconite species are, I doubt they'll take this lying down, the system voiced. Then it won't end well for them either, Gustav stated. SJ watch FA. Gustav was about to give an instruction when they sensed an immense energy far behind. And in core, Gustav recognized the massive shadowy figure towering into the sky as it stood above where Captain Strum had winded up. He's conscious, Gustav voiced in realization. He knew Captain Strum didn't die from that attack, but he was very sure he incapacitated him, so Gustav was expecting the Draconites watching to swoop down and take Sir Captain away. However, Gustav was just realizing that the Draconites watching didn't do that, because they were somehow confident that their captain would be okay. Whoosh, Gustav turned around completely at this point and sped forward. Far ahead within a massive ditch, Captain Strum's body, which was missing 6 of his limbs, as well as his lower half, suddenly opened his eyes. Erf! He roared, but it was unknown whether it was in pain or rage. Roelfa Dialpha, Inu Omi's shadowy Inkur, which towered above him, brought down its palms on Captain Strum's body. Thyayahan, a blue glow like that of the spear he used against Falco, suddenly encapsulated the entire vicinity. Gustav paused in mid-air and shielded his eyes as this glow was so intensity that it caused even his skin to emit mist. The glow dimmed in the next moment before disappearing, and what appeared in Gustav's line of sight next was an incoming figure. Thwirwhoosh! Bang! 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 Multiple powerful fists slammed repeatedly into Gustav, sending him flying backwards as he only managed to counter 4 of them. As Gustav's body flipped backwards in mid-air repeatedly, Captain Strum raised 3 of his right hands while flying after Gustav. The Inkur towering above him put a massive 100-feet-long glowing spear in his hands. He arched his arms backwards with intensity before throwing the glowing blue spear forward with incredible strength. Alpha Dialpha Theta Nu Epsilon Mowever. At the last moment, Gustav suddenly stabilized himself with the tip, which was larger than his entire body, only inches away from making contact. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Thradas. His entire figure turned into a lightning bolt that streaked upwards with speed, instantly disappearing from everyone's line of sight. Boom! Another area ahead was instantly disintegrated as the spear slammed into a frosted mountain. Everything turned into light particles, causing destruction on the same level of Gustav's attack earlier. Lightning Blitz has been activated. Captain Strum, who was still flying forward searching for Gustav, suddenly spotted a lightning bolt appear in front of him and transform into the very person he was searching for. Bang! Gustav's fist slammed into Captain Strum's face after taking him by surprise, causing his figure get catapulted into the distance. Gustav had activated Lightning Blitz for the second time after escaping Captain Strum's initial spear attack. What was that? The power of his encore. Gustav stared downwards from his position above at the destruction with god eyes. Its ability is time-related. He reversed time for himself, going back to his initial state before my attack hit. Gustav instantly figured it out as he realized that the damaged area from the spear attack had very subtle details that depicted formations that could only be found when matter is newly created. Looks like he wanted to erase you from existence, the system voiced. More like he wanted to rewind my existence to a point where I never existed. As Gustav thought of this, he came to a realization that Falco must have tanked such an attack. It was mind-boggling that Falco survived. It hadn't even been more than a few moments since Gustav escaped the attack, but he had already figured out all of this. Did you really think you could take me out with one attack? Captain Strum had stabilized himself in midair very quickly. Did you really think I'd let you off with what you did to my friend? Gustav voiced in response as wings sprouted out of his back. He is fortunate to have survived for the shame he caused my great planet. Just as you did, Captain Strum and Kor stood right behind him at this point. Shame? Your great planet feels no shame for trying to steal an egg, but feels shame after getting their ass kicked. Typical, Gustav replied. I shall no longer tolerate any more humiliation from you Earthlings, even though you are a captain just like me. After saying this, Captain Strum's encore began glowing. For a powerful being such as yourself, it will not be below me to reveal the true form of my encore, he stated as the shadowy color turned to a bright teal, shining a blinding glow across the vicinity. A thorny-looking glowing halo could be spotted floating above its head, which had over 12 eyeballs arranged in a circular format. It looked like the encore was clad in a robe like an humanoid figure without a face. A powerful pressure descended upon the environment as the encore stood before them like a deity descended from the high heavens. Oh, that is a level 6 encore. The system voiced in Gustav's mind. A level 6? That isn't something a 20-year-old should have, Gustav thought with a straight face. Yeah, just like how you also shouldn't be this powerful, but here we are, the system added. Fair point. Gustav's face remained straight like he was unfazed, but internally he was quite surprised. Captain Strum was the first participant he was meeting that was practically on his level of strength. If you kneel before me and apologize while handing the egg over to my subordinates, I shall spear you, Captain Strum stated with a prideful tone. Chapter 1202 The group arrives. If you kneel before me and apologize while handing the egg over to my subordinates, I shall spare you, Captain Strum stated with a prideful tone. Is that so? I haven't dealt with you enough for hurting my friend. Prepare to be in a world of pain, Gustav replied as his eyes glowed menacingly. The entire vicinity trembled intensely due to the clash of energies emitting from their beings. Just as the spectators were about to witness what might be a proper first battle between captains, a massive wall suddenly descended and landed right in between them. The massive wall had brick-like lines, but looked too smooth to be made of bricks. It was so wide and massive that it covered a very long distance. The wind that spread forth from it upon its landing caused Gustav's hair to flutter as he floated in mid-air. Gustav and Captain Strum were aware that this wall that had arrived in their midst couldn't stop them from engaging each other, but they paused briefly. 14 Draconids could be seen approaching from the western sky with speed. Austral, I do not need your assistance to take care of this, Captain Strum voiced with a slightly irritated expression as he glared in their direction. The vice-captain of the Draconids flew towards Captain Strum while the other Draconids landed on the wall and turned to face Gustav. Facing all of them together will be a near impossible task unless you go for slaughter, the system voiced in Gustav's mind. He was well aware of this, as he could sense the strength level of the new arrivals. He couldn't even gauge Captain Strum's strength properly due to the reveal of his Encore true form, so this would be an uncertain battle even for him. I haven't come to offer assistance, Captain, Vice Captain Austral stated the moment she arrived before Captain Strum. What? Then why are you here? Get out of my sight, Captain Strum yelled. Gustav's energy began to build up intensely at this point, causing the draconites on the wall to show expressions of wariness. Maybe you'll just use it, Gustav muttered. All of a sudden, everyone felt the approach of multiple people heading in this direction. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Some flew, some leapt across the air while others sped across the ground. They're here. A smile appeared on Gustav's face. A violet-colored vortexes appeared on the wall before him, and two people walked out of it. Yo, Gus, are these people bothering you? A familiar voice called out to him. How did you guys get here so fast? Gustav asked. You underestimate us, Captain. We move as fast as required when it is necessary. So who are we beating up this time? Voiced with an excited tone. The draconites stared at the newly arrived two on the wall with them. Mind your words, Earthling. We are not here to fight, one of the draconites stated. Then what are you here for? Eldris questioned with a calm demeanor. Their captain hurt Falco, Gustav stated before the draconette could reply. What? They hurt Falco? And Eldris voiced with surprised tones as they glared at the draconites. At this same moment, the others were arriving as well and found their way to the wall. Elevera landed directly on it, while the others climbed and leapt to the top. Did someone say Falco got hurt? Matilda voiced. Gus, let's make them pay, Teamy said while red energy blasted forth from his figure. Where is Falco? Glade questioned while Vera stood in place silent as usual. On the other side of the wall, Vice Captain Austral seemed to be in a small argument with Captain Strum, and this time she wasn't backing down. You expect me to just withdraw and bring shame to our great planet? Have you gone mad, Austral? Captain Strum said with a tone of annoyance. Now that his teammates have arrived, it will become a nuisance. Now is neither the place nor the time. We should be gathering as many eggs as possible. This is just an unnecessary delay, Vice Captain Austral stated. I shall not. You will have the opportunity to face any one of them you wish to again when the time comes. Then you can have a proper fighting stage and show the might of our great planet to everyone. For now, it is best we withdraw, she explained with a convincing tone. Captain Strum had a slightly sour look, but was starting to see reason. Fly. He flew upwards in the next instant. Withdraw, everyone. Yes, Captain. The draconites answered and ascended as well. Where do y'all think you're going? Do you think you can just leave after hurting our teammate? Teamy voiced as the whole vicinity suddenly turned completely red. Captain Strum paused in midair and turned to stare at the earthlings standing on the wall. I have no business with you. Gustav Crimson, we will meet again to finish what we started soon. After saying this, he sped forward with speed, disappearing into the distance. You Dawn. My apologies. Vice Captain Austral, who was still floating in place, interrupted Teamy before he could do anything. We don't want to cause a mess, and we believe this is also in the best interests of Earth, as well, since this will delay both parties in the gathering of eggs. Let's focus on the task at hand till we meet again later in the competition and have a proper battle, she explained politely. Austral, are you coming or what? Captain Strum's voice resounded in her mind. Farewell, she stated before flying away. What should we do, Gus? Questioned. Let's go after them. They will pay. Teamy yelled in anguish. Tap. Gustavs placed his palm on Teamy's shoulder. Let it be. What? How could? The vice captain of the Draconites was right. Gustav cut Teamy off before he could complete his sentence. I agree. The battle would delay us since it isn't the focus of this challenge. We can deal with them later, and we certainly will have the opportunity to, Eldris specified. Teamy slowly calmed himself after hearing this, but asked Gustav, You really didn't do anything after he harmed Falco? Would you believe it if I told you he was nearly dead a couple of minutes ago? Gustav responded with a question. He looked fine to me, Teamy said. Gustav recalled his energy at this point and flew in the direction of the sacred jewel. Don't push the subject. You should know Gus well by now. There is no way he would just let a person who harmed someone he cares about go just like that, Eldris said to Timmy. Eldris is right. I would know since I've experienced his wrath firsthand. Indrik chipped in from the side. The tension within the group began to dissipate as they flew in the same direction Gustav headed in. We don't even know if he is the right person yet. We need more time. Our Lord said his offspring hangs around our target, so it has to be one of them. We cannot make the mistake of using the ultimate attack on the wrong person. Remember, we can only use it once. A group of dark phantom-like participants with dark bandage-like clothes wrapped around their body from head to toe could be seen transversing past a cold valley. What about our captain? One of them questioned. He is still making his findings. I believe we should have confirmation after this challenge. Another one answered as darkness steamed out from his head like smoke. The offspring. Should we kill him too? One of them asked. Only if he fails to accept the throne, then he will no longer be of use to our Lord. We can execute him if that happens. Flicker, flicker. Falco slowly opened his eyes to see a roof of icicle-like rocks covering his head. You're finally awake, Timmy voiced from the side. Am not dead? Falco muttered as he slowly sat up. Well, I would have sent the ones responsible to join you in the afterlife if you were, Timmy replied with a smile. If you're here then, the others. Falco looked around and could only see a floating Viander egg machine upwards and a charred ground beneath. They went to gather more eggs. I stayed to watch you with SJ, Timmy responded. SJ? Timmy showed a slightly confused expression before SJ appeared beside him. Oh, this thing that follows Gustav around, he voiced in understanding after seeing the translucent circular object with glowing internals. It saved you before Gustav arrived. Timmy began explaining everything that had happened since Falco was out. SJ had showed them the footage, so he also watched Gustav's arrival when he nearly destroyed Captain Strum's existence with a single punch. Timmy was a bit astonished, but was happy to be alive nevertheless. However, something began to bug him after a couple of minutes of being awake. 62C5B29427008FD12A9, add 975E follow current novels on Top Novel Fool. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.